Okay, maybe you could just, I hate to say this, maybe you could just recap a little bit of what you said there, Libby, for the people on live stream who missed that eloquent,
Sure. Well,
eloquent speech you had.
I was just saying how I was enjoying the international workshop yesterday, and then also because people are more and more people are coming forward and expressing their understandings of the Keshe technology, and then since you had mentioned about the news on the south of the border from us, I also mentioned it's really changing Parliament Hill. Our government structure is becoming well aware that um, harassment of women is no longer kosher, so to speak, and it's requiring all of us, the people who we've elected, but even ourselves, to really examine what was the conduct we thought was okay, because we were indoctrinated to think that this is what you have to go through as a woman. You have to just deal with these harassments, and now we are recognizing that we can't do that. But there's more than that. Even all the different avenues that we once thought were acceptable have changed, and we're being forced to re-examine how our words may impact others, how our own thoughts affect us, what we focus on, and learning now 100% responsibility for what we focus on and what we emit. Emit, are we emitting pure light, or is it fractured because we've got all these filters preventing us from seeing the beauty of each other? And I'm sure that I drifted from the original conversation I put out there, but okay, good.
My sound wasn't on in live stream there, so you came through though. But yes, thank you for that. Rather well done. Things. Anyone have something they'd like to add or talk about that or say about that? Let's try to work with that theme a little bit, perhaps. Um, let's see. What was some of the things? What were some of the other things that came up in that last 25th One Nation, One Planet, One Race for World Peace? There's a lot of good ideas there. Mr. Keshe talked about, for example, the idea that we can become I think the term was a chameleon of the universe, or chameleon of space, perhaps it was. I have to look up that statement. I was going to do that actually. Maybe I'll do that now and see what that was about. Is there anything else that sticks out for you?
No, because like all of these workshops, they're full of nuggets, and it's not unfortunate, but the retention of all those nuggets is not always easy because there's just so many. There's one after the other. Um, so
All the time. Um, I was just saying that one of the things that the Keshe Foundation is doing now is something called the Quote Quest. What was that again? The Quote Quest. What is the
yeah,
Quote
tell us
Quest?
more about that because I think that's going to be bringing all the nuggets and
Yeah, that's
yeah.
exactly what it's about. So the idea with the Quote Quest is to collect Keshe quotes, essentially all the favorite Keshe quotes, the quotable quotes that we've heard through workshops and other sources, maybe in the books or whatever. But generally, I'd like to collect ones that are from the videos, so we have an audio and preferably with the captions as well. But at least the audio link directly to a video that has the choice quote. So let me give an example here. I'll show how that works. it's really pretty neat, and I'll tell a little story about what happened to me when I was just trying to set this up and edit these quotes. Let me see here. Let me just do a screen share. And just about there. I think that should work. So this is the Keshe Foundation community site that you might go to. That has the starting screen. It looks like that, and you can go into the forum in the community. Community.keshefoundation.org is the site. And it has Keshe Foundation news, announcements, and community rules, request a workshop. And then there's Quote Quest as under the general forum here. And when you click on Quote Quest, it says you can provide your favorite quotes from Mr. Keshe. And also there's a set of instructions, so you can click on the instructions if you're not sure how this works. And it says you have a favorite quote from Mr. Keshe. The Keshe Foundation is composing a Quote Quest list of popular short quotes originating from Mr. Keshe. We'd like to have knowledge seekers from around the world post their most memorable quotes from Mr. Keshe. And then to submit a quote, you sign in or sign up for the community site here, and then go under the Quote Quest submissions topic, and we ask people to please provide a full timestamp and a direct YouTube link to the quote for Mr. Keshe. See below for example, and it gives an example of how to go to the YouTube channel, find the point in the video that you want to take the quote from, and you can click on the share box and bring up the share. Let me make this bigger so people can see better. Brings up the share box, and you can click the little check box that you see in the share box, and that will automatically give you a timed caption or timed link to the YouTube video. So you can see in this one it's actually timed at 11 minutes 30 seconds, and you can copy that link, and then you can paste that anywhere, and it'll take you directly to the part in the video that was playing at the time that you took the share link. And I'll show you how that works. There's an example here, and you can see there's a time signature. There's a link, clickable link in this example. So we have the quote, and we have from Mr. Keshe, and we have the Knowledge Seekers workshop, where it came from, and the time of the workshop, and there's the clickable link. And when I click on that link, let me share differently here so you can see without it going away. When I click on the link, it should take me directly to the part in the video. Let's see if we can hear it. Oh, it didn't actually in this one for some reason. There's a glitch in the link in this one actually. So just a second where I go back to the Quote Quest submissions, and we'll have a look at some of the submissions there. There's the actual link in the submissions here. We have to change it in the other one, but I think this one will take us through to where we need to go. And so on. So It took us directly to the part in the 206 Knowledge Seekers Workshop that particular quote is happening. So it's interesting, and we have a series. I put in some quotes here. One of my favorites is this one. If you have a single atom in a cubic meter, that plasma will cover the whole cubic meter. Okay, it's a pretty big idea, actually. And we can, because the link is here, you can click on the link, and hopefully just notice that it's not playing through properly on the live stream. The audio from the microphones is, but not my system audio. And that's because of this strange glitch happening. Let me try it again. Let me just play a little bit and see if it comes through now. No, it's not playing through properly.
Did you, when you were sharing it, did you hit here audio, computer audio? You know, there's that little box you have to click.
Yeah, I did click that, and it didn't come on this time for some reason. So I don't know why that happened, and I might have to restart the live stream to kick that in or something.
Well, we didn't hear it either.
Oh, you couldn't hear it. Oh, that maybe that's what I did. I see what you're saying. Yes. I was thinking the Zoom. I just didn't click the optimize and share computer sound. Thank you, Libby. That's why you're co-host. Help me out here.
I've gained a little bit of knowledge doing this.
Yeah, after hundreds of workshops, probably something like that. Let me try the magic button here once again, and let's see if we can do it properly. Okay, so I think I have it set up so it'll handle the video now. Let me just double check on that, because I gotta make sure that the desktop is going to handle that. Okay, I'll try it again, see if it works this time.
That single, if you have a single atom in a cubic meter.
And then it stopped. So I don't know what happened there, but.
Right. Okay, well I don't know if that came through quite right on the live stream, but
well, it's weird because it did, and then it stopped. Something.
Yeah, I had two devices going, and it was warning me I had to undo one, and when I undid that, both of them went off for some reason. So there's some kind of weird glitch there. Tell you what, let me try it one more time. I'll try it with a different quote, and we'll see if it comes through. Let me see what else. Oh, I like this one too. There's no full vacuum state in the universe. We think of space being a vacuum, but it isn't. There's stuff everywhere in space. So let me try to play this and see if that comes through on the live stream properly. I'm having a heck of a time here. Let's see here. No, it's having issues here for some reason. Just saying, before we were so interrupted, if you go to the community.keshefoundation.org, which looks something like this when you check in there, you might get this and you can start exploring and sign in or sign up depending on your situation. And you can click on the forum button on the upper right side there. Takes you through to the forum. And as I mentioned before, there's the quote quest button down on the fourth topic down in the general part of the forums. You can click on quote quest, and that takes you through to the quote quest submissions and also the quote quest instructions. And if you're not sure how to post a quote quest, or you need to know more about that, there's instructions there on how to copy the quote, the exact quote location as a link and so on in YouTube. And if we go to the quote quest submissions, you'll see the first sample submission here. It's been put in by the webmaster. I'll just highlight it. Man's in charge of his own destiny. And when you click on the link, it'll take you directly through to the video, which I'm tempted to try it, but I'm pretty sure it's not going to play once again.
Don't.
It just embarrassed me for another 5 minutes. So we can kind of go through and just have a look here. This was the one I was just trying to reach, which is if you have a single atom in a cubic meter, that plasma will cover the whole cubic meter. And it gives the direct link. That's in the first Keshe public teaching workshop, which I had a look at recently, and I also uploaded the captions for that first public teaching workshop. I had the captions on the 8 parts when I first uploaded that workshop. When it was first done, YouTube wouldn't let videos on that were any more than 15 minutes at a time. So if you can believe that, that was back in the good old days of YouTube back in 2013. And so I uploaded 8 parts to this 2-hour workshop, 8 15-minute parts basically, to complete the workshop. And each part had its captions on it on my channel, but I didn't have the full captions on the full workshop on the Keshe Foundation channel. So I had to piece together all those 8 parts as a caption file, SRT file, and that's just been uploaded, and that makes it easy to search that YouTube for captions and so on. There's lots of good ones in that first workshop, including the one of the no full vacuum state in the universe. And then in the third public teaching workshop, there's a great one that I really like. It's very simple. Just as a lead into it, what's her name? Lady Dragon was this lady called Lady Dragon from Montreal, who was a videographer and had an internet TV station and whatnot. Was part of the group, this third public teaching workshop. And so she was asking some questions of Mr. Keshe, and she wanted to know what the secret was of the reactors, because Lady Dragon and I had been, she'd been asking me questions, and she started to get interested and quite knowledgeable about the reactors and about the patents and so on. And she knew that there's gases involved with these first patents from the Keshe patent application and so on. So she's asking Mr. Keshe, what is the secret of the reactors? Is it the gases in the reactors, Mr. Keshe? Is it the gases? And Mr. Keshe just says very kind of deeply, the secret is in your brain. And it was just, whoa, it was pretty mind-blowing, so to speak.
That would make a great thing on your t-shirt.
It'd be a great thing for me to click on this link and have it play in my video too.
You can't resist, can you?
I can't, because it's so nice, And I tell you, the little story that went along with this, I was busy editing some of these quotes that were put in. There's a series, for example, from Marie Calv here, from the 194th Knowledge Seekers Workshop, and she's put in like, I think 12 of them or something just from that one workshop. And I was going through just editing some of the formatting and making them appear better and so on, and just kind of going through. And then all of a sudden, one of these just stood right out for me, and I got so curious I couldn't help but click on that link, and I was done for then. I was like hooked. I had to go in and listen to it and find out what it was about. The one that it's the one that we're looking at here, which is it says the captain is the soul of the man, and the spaceship is the dimension which the soul decides to manifest itself. I thought, wow, that's really, what a beautiful definition of going to space, essentially, and its ultimate goal, the ultimate way, as the captain, the soul of the man, the captain of the spaceship, and the spaceship being not even a container as such, or even a something that we consider of anything of physicality, or even the fields. Really, it's the dimension which the soul decides to manifest itself. Not just, in the physicality somewhere, but it could be a whole different dimension that doesn't include the physicality, or it could be on a large scale or a small scale, or a different time dimension. It just makes it virtually unlimited as to how you can manifest yourself from that position. So it says so much in that one statement. And of course, when you go back and listen to the context of it, to extract more of the meaning of what Mr. Keshe meant at the time when he actually said it, then it's really quite a fruitful way to investigate this teaching. For example, I don't know how long this workshop is. I think it's like 3.5 hours or something like that. And it would be difficult to just go in and listen to, basically 4 hours of workshop, because it's so intense. You can almost shut off to it. It's almost mesmerizing in a way. It's hard for the physicality to get a handle on some of these statements. But if you approach it, well, someone mentioned the allegory that it cuts like a knife. It's very direct and cutting, and goes right to your core when you read or hear these statements, because they come from the core of Mr. Keshe. Look at the next one, for example. Speaking of core, I am the sun, and the sun is the creator of the life. That's a pretty big statement to make, and how could someone say such a thing? Well, you go back in and listen to it, the context of it, and start to understand what that means, and how powerful we are as creators, and so on. Again, the oasis system of the man is the soul of the man. The oasis system is known as this field-based system, but we usually think of it as the physicality kind of system that sends out fields and protects us and so on. But the true oasis system is the actual soul of the man. So this is a pretty big idea. Of course, all the other ones are equally big once you get into them at all. And it's easy to just kind of gloss over, but once you start reading and understanding, you understand that there's something pretty big in there and behind the words. And like I say, it's just like a hook and a worm in a way to people like me that like to seek knowledge. If you're a knowledge seeker, then you like to know what's behind the universe that we see, and how to penetrate that deeper and try to get some understanding through the insights of others and whatnot, and get our own insights through these kinds of statements. But they're so short, they're disarming in a way, but at the same time go right to the point. So I think it's a really great way. Here's another one I ran into that I'd forgotten about, that was said back in the 195th Knowledge Seekers Workshop. We had the Industrial Revolution. Now this is the Soul Revolution. What a nice way to say it, eh?
Absolutely, and I want to laud the work that Marie has done on the 193rd and the 194th, which have been placed in the YouTube. She's really gone in those two. She's coordinating the Soul Focus group in the private classes, and I am in awe at her capacity to go through them and look for, and she's using the technique that you also recommended, I believe, to search through the transcripts for where he starts to talk about the soul, so that you can start there, and that might be a clue for others who want to study the workshops, looking for particular aspects, particular topics, is to go in through the transcripts, which is that triple button on the YouTube on the far right, and then make sure that people click on the English, because the auto translate is not 100% reliable, and the English transcript is, let's say, 90%. There's still errors in there, but they're usually minor. But
yes,
through the
let me show that while you're talking about it there.
Okay.
And
because it's a very good way to look for the information that you are, as a knowledge seeker, looking for further clarification on. And in our soul focus group, that's what we're doing. We're looking for the sections where Mr. Keshe talks about the soul, so we have a deeper understanding. Because as Rick has shown us, each one of those nuggets you could just ponder for quite a while to bring it inside yourself to see, wow, I'm the captain. The captain is the soul of the man. Okay. Okay, and am I the captain, or am I still stuck with all my filters and not being able to see and interact with my soul?
Right. So, for example, say we look at the 206 Knowledge Seekers Workshop, and we want to search the captions on this for keywords, let's say. So, first of all, people should know about the captions, which is you have your captions button down in the lower right part of the video window, and that can be turned on and off, and it comes up here, and then it tells you to click the other button beside it in order to get the settings for the button that you just pushed, which is, to me, a bit of a software glitch, but it's probably the way Windows normally works. So you can then select the subtitle of your choice. There's English, which I have selected. There's also happens to be French, German, Italian, Norwegian, Portuguese, and Dutch and Chinese here, as well as Russian, Spanish, Turkish, and you can see English auto-generated or auto-translate. So generally keep away from the English auto-generated unless you really like to have occasional gibberish, in which case that's a great way to get it. The English is what's already been transcribed and put onto the video as should be the correct, what we call the correct subtitles. So if we were to, just as an example, we go to a random part in the video, you can see the subscript there, the caption, what we call captions or subscripts, and of course you can select different languages and change those subscripts at will. So that's all nice. Now, how do we search the subscripts? Well, what I do is I can push, at least on my Mac, I'm not sure if it's the same on Windows, but I do a Command F, and if you watch up in the upper right part of the screen, a little tiny wee window, much tinier than I would like to see, opens up. Can you see that up in the upper right part of the screen here? I'll open up a bit bigger for live stream to be able to see it. It's a little search window that comes up in the browser, and from there, like we mentioned, soul, for example, if we were to put in the word soul, well, actually what happens is that starts to search all the word soul on the page, but what we need to do first is to bring up the transcripts. To do that, you click on the three buttons, the three dots. Again, it's kind of obscure, but it's three dots that are below the lower right part of the video window. And if you can see my mouse here, I click on that and open transcript. And when you click on open transcript, it sets up the transcript just to the right of the video window, or if the video window is in theater mode, it'll put the transcript below the window. So now you've got a transcript for the whole video available to you here, so you can either go through and scroll through it to find something that's quotable, let's say, something that gets your attention. But you can also do your search. So for example, we can search soul, and let's see what happens there. Okay, we have an instance of the word soul here at 12:54, and what we can do is click on that phrase, and it goes right to the time in the video. And let me try playing it. Maybe it'll come through to hear it. No, I can hear it, but you can't.
And for people who aren't on a Mac, on the PC, if you do that, open the transcripts first and then hit Control F, it seems that the window is slightly larger. It also tells you how many times he said so in the transcript, so you can go next or back, which I found helpful.
For me, what I do is I go, I put my cursor up in the search box there where soul is, for example. I put return, and it gives me the next instance of the word in the transcript. And from there, I just hit return, and return, it keeps going to the next instance. You can see at 15 minutes, and then at 16, 17, there's a lot of words soul in here. And it just keeps going through to each instance, and then you can click on the line from there to go directly to it in the video. And you're saying it works a little different with
non-Mac computer, yeah. It's just that it tells you how many times it's there, but you still get your next and your back buttons. But it's nice to know how many times he said it. For instance, in the 194, I think it was the 194, I believe it was 57 times it was mentioned.
Right.
And each one of them was quite fruitful, shall we say, for those of us who are trying to have a deep comprehension of, for teaching purposes, but also for ourselves, because we can't really teach if we don't comprehend it. And again, Marie Calvert's doing fantastic work. I'm glad she's doing it, and we are inviting all the students who are part of the KFSSI education private classes to join in finding areas in the workshops where he does talk about it, so that we can discuss it. It's helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so then if you go through and you find a particular sentence that you like, for example, this gives the soul of the man a new dimension. Maybe you like that for some reason. And you can click on the phrase here, and that'll take you to the part in the video. And then you click on the share button under the video. And in my case on a Mac and this browser, for some reason I have to click on once, twice, and 3 times the charm, and up comes the share window. Boy, there's a lot of glitchy stuff for a company, Google, that specializes in software and spends literally hundreds of billions of dollars on their company. You'd think they'd make it a little more obvious and a little more less glitchy, let's say. But that's okay. We'll endure. So what happens is now we have the time is set up on the video at 1906, which is the time stamp for this. But we have to click on this little button, this checkbox here, and that adds the time signature to the end of the video, a URL. And now we have a complete URL that we can copy and paste or embed, and it can also share directly to all the usual places, Facebook and Twitter and whatnot here. So now you have a direct link to the direct quote that can be shared easily through YouTube. And I think that's a great feature. And then if you want to play the Quote Quest game, by adding to our collection of quotes in the Keshe Foundation Community Forum, then you can copy that and put it into your post in the forum, and it'll give a direct clickable link for anybody to go to that particular quote. So, any questions on that? That's the basic thing there. Is there any other features with that search or transcript function that you could think of, Elizabeth?
No, I think you did a great job, and even though the computers are not behaving properly, I think more people now understand how they can contribute to the quote quest and to their own understanding by going through the transcripts to find those areas they want. So great job.
Okay. Let me show, while we're at this explanation of that, I'd like to show a couple of applications that I've run into recently that are quite nice for people doing research work and transcriptions and all that kind of thing. Let me share my desktop. It'd be easier here, I think. And this first application is called Transcript Snagger. And what I'm going to do is let me just open the little file thing. There it is. This is about Transcript Snagger, and what it says is Transcript Snagger is a tool to make it easy to retrieve transcripts from captioned YouTube videos. When you insert a YouTube video URL and hit the search button, it will provide you with a list of transcripts in different languages that are available for that video to download. They can be saved as paragraph text or line by line with or without timecode, or they can be saved as SRT or VTT caption files. So if we were to put in the URL in here of this video, it gives me the languages that are available. And if I click English, for example, then I can download the transcript or any of the languages, and either by paragraph or line by line, including the timecode, or as an SRT file, which is okay in itself. But the cool part is you can search for a word or phrase. Like, for example, we looked at soul. What happens when we search for soul? Well, we come up with a very long list, and it tells you exactly how many results, 118 results in this video for the term soul, and gives an actual clickable link for each of these instances. So here we have a full list of all the phrases that have soul in them, or at least lines in the caption file. It's not necessarily the whole phrase, but you'll see the whole phrase when you take in one or two lines. And so that you can go through that and, you know, in a whole workshop fairly quickly and find out which, you know, phrases that work best for you. And maybe you're overwhelmed by 118 things to search for with soul. Maybe you need soul of the physicality. Let's see if that, okay, so there's two instances in that video of the what is this, you know, soul of the physicality. There's two instances. If I click on it, it goes directly to the part in the video and starts saying it, even though you can't hear it, I can. So again, it's a very handy way to do searches, and then you can save that as a file, and it gives me the search results in a text file if I wish that, with the timestamp behind it. And then once I have that, I can actually copy and paste that right back into the description of the YouTube video, and then I have clickable links automatically in the YouTube video from the search terms that I've searched in YouTube. And that's really handy for people that are uploading the descriptions to the videos, or, you know, wanted to work with some editing work that way.
And you said, because you showed that earlier in another workshop of ours, and you said it wasn't very expensive, right? I think you said something around $20.
Yeah, not sure. I think it was 20 US. I believe that's what it was, which is about 25 or something like that in Canadian. So it's fairly reasonable if you know, it's a lot if you don't use it at all, but if you use it even a few times, it's already, you know, paid for itself as far as I'm concerned, because it's made it. I've been able to search some of the videos to get a list of the terms, and it's just been great. It's been a godsend in a way. So that's basically the way that works. And now the same guy, this Patrick Bisong here, he shows it in the description, from Syncromedia Software. He's also come up with another application, which I'll show here. So that was Transcript Snagger, that last one. I should put it in the chat here, possibly. Let's see if there must be a link here for it. Not getting a link right there, so I'll have to, maybe I'll put it in later. Somebody else can put it in there for me, a transcript snagger. Just look it up on Google. And let me get the other one lined up, which is called Video Word Search. And here's the blurb for Video Word Search. Video word search for YouTube is a new way to search for content within YouTube videos. It will load up to 50 videos at a time, and clicking on their titles will initiate a word search once an available language is chosen. The language pull down always defaults to the last language chosen. It can save the search results with direct links to the part of the video where the search term is mentioned. So again, it's similar to the other application, but it's got some interesting features that we can have a look at here. Okay, so this is the window for the video word search, and let me see if I can select the window as a share. Maybe it'll come up. I think this will work better so we can see it on the screen better. And again, if we were to, we can put in a search term. Let's say we're searching for Keshe and Soul, and we'll go to load videos and see what comes up. Okay, so we get a list here of 50 videos, and they're not all the Keshe Foundation. It seems like the first 6 or 8 here are. There's one that is not, this other one, and there's another one. There's another one still that's not. There's another one. So there's several in here that are not. That are not Keshe Foundation videos. But what we can do is, once we have these titles, we know that Keshe and Soul are implied in the titles somewhere. So now we can search for, instead of Keshe and Soul, let's just look for Soul. And we click on the 205th Knowledge Seekers Workshop. It comes up with the full list of all the words, all the instances of Soul in that workshop. If I was to click on the 194th underneath of it, it comes up with a full list of that, which is posted underneath of the results of the previous workshop. And we see all those results. So this can be overwhelming for Soul. So maybe if we go, say we're looking for Soul of the physicality. And we do a search for that. Let me remove these results, and I'm not sure. Okay, so we have in the first 205th workshop, we have 4 instances of Soul of the physicality, and again they're clickable links, so I can click on them, and it brings up this window down here. It goes directly to the part of the video, and you can hear the actual playing of the sound. If you could hear the sound, but you can't. Hate that. And if I just keep clicking through the videos, we'll get all the instances of Soul of the physicality that come up here. You can see how the list is increasing under each of these titles, which is great if you're searching for a particular search term like that, because otherwise it would take you forever to try to go through and accumulate all this information. You know, like there's some that might be earlier and some you may not think of. Not sure how whether all these will have Soul of the physicality or not. That's a little more recent term than some of the earlier workshops. Let's see, kids workshop, no. 185th, no. Okay, so it looks like that might be all of the instances that are a part of this list. Quite a few on this list are not part of the Keshe Foundation. There was a bit more there on the 168th. Had 5 more instances come up there, and that was toward the end of the list. So now we have quite a variety of instances of the phrase Soul of the physicality. And then at that point we can save the results as a text file and show you what that looks like. And you have a text file that looks something like this with the timestamp and the actual YouTube link as well as the information from which workshop it's from, and the whole results from that search. again, quite handy, and it makes this whole thing of it gives a whole new realm, a whole new dimension, you could say, to the idea of searching for keywords and phrases in the Keshe videos, because as anyone knows, it can be just totally overwhelming to try to search through, what are we up now, over 1,500 videos now on the Keshe Foundation official YouTube video channel. I mean, that's overwhelming, and quite a few of them, if not most of them, are over 2 hours long, and a lot of them are 3, 4, 5 hours or 6 hours long. And to try to go through without searching the words is virtually impossible to start with. And so having this now, I'll have to say that this application only works if the words are already transcribed, or if there's captions for the words already, I should say. It doesn't work on the automatic English. It has to be uploaded captions in order to work. So in that regard, I would encourage people to, if they have any inkling that they would like to be a transcriber, it would be a great time to get involved, or trying to get the transcribing team expanded so that we can include getting the earlier videos transcribed. The team is keeping up really well with all the recent videos, and now any new knowledge seekers video that comes out is transcribed within a week, or usually within a few days. I think that's the way it goes.
Well, we get them Thursday afternoon, and we try to get them published no later than Sunday night or Monday morning.
Right.
But there are very few of us, and we would love more. So please do apply to become a transcriber. Anybody who hears this, you're more than welcome. It's a really good way to get a deeper understanding, certainly of the sections that you're reviewing. It is helpful if you have a good base knowledge in English, but we have quite a few transcribers who English is not their first language. And they have noticed that their own comprehension is much deeper and that their English improves. So there's room for everybody. And you will need to, I believe you have to go through security first to be able to do this. But in the public teachings, there might be a little bit more discretion. I know that there is a link somewhere on the keshefoundation.org where the public can access if they're wanting to contribute. And please do come, because it's been, for me, I've been doing it just over a year now, and it has helped me tremendously to be able to understand exactly what Mr. Keshe is saying. And there's quite a few of us, so don't think, oh my goodness, it is a big responsibility, but there are normally at least 3 or 4 checks. It would be helpful for us if we had more people whose English was their base language, because we need more reviewers.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a good skill to learn. I'm still a hunt and peck. I never really learned how to type, so it slows me down. But I can understand what Mr. Keshe says very clearly these days. And so where I may lose on that I gain in making sure where transcribers before me may be putting question marks, I can usually figure out what he's saying.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a few of us who can do that. And the more that can jump in, the happier we'd be. So please do. There is a place where you can sign up as a volunteer.
Right. I think volunteer is one of the ways, and you can also sign up in the support part of the, what do you call it, the human resources part of the support page on the Keshe Foundation is another way. And also, if you get signed up as a student, then that's a student at the KFSSI, Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute, then you can also have the opportunity to transcribe the private teachings, which are, there's a lot of private teachings, earlier ones that Mr. Keshe gave that would be great to transcribe as well. And also we're trying to, it looks like we'll have a way that people that are transcribers will basically, it'll help pay for their admission fee to be a student. And I think that would be a great way that you know, people, especially if they can't afford the, was it €100 a year as to sign up to be a student, you can sort of work it off as a transcriber to help out with that. And that would be just great if we could get a bunch of people that are willing to help out with the transcribing, you know, in exchange for being a student and getting involved with all that as well.
And there's so many benefits to being a student, because you do have direct interaction with many of the people that know so much and have been within the foundation for a long time. They come in, they share their knowledge, and then the students begin to share their knowledge, and the students soon become teachers. It's really quite a family to be part of. So I highly encourage everyone to sign up to be a student, because you're really giving by becoming a student. You're receiving great, but you're also learning to give in other ways. It's been a beautiful experience for me, and I'm glad I signed up.
Yeah, that's one of the core ideas that makes the Keshe teaching, I think, different than, say, most universities and so on, where you're actually encouraged to, well, I guess universities do have, you know, teacher's aid programs and this kind of thing. There, you can become a teacher's aide and help out with experiments or teachings in the classroom, that kind of thing. But in this case, with the KFSSI, then people are encouraged to become teachers as well as students, and to either teach your specialty, which you might be associated with the Keshe teachings, but sort of in your own way, and also the idea of just being able to teach stuff to others that don't know very much about the basic things, and to be able to go on and, you know, it's sort of, it's like being a workshop teacher, but you end up being a teacher of the teaching, basically. So it's really a great thing. The whole transcribing thing is just so wonderful. That's how I got involved with the Keshe Foundation originally, is by transcribing the 5 original videos that Mr. Keshe had sitting around the fireplace and playing with his magnets on his magnetic board and showing us about the atom and about his reactors and all this kind of thing. And I just thought that when I watched those videos, I just thought, oh, this information has got to get out to people. They're not getting enough hits on the videos, and maybe if we transcribe it and put the captions up, then people can read it and they can really, you know, understand, get a better understanding, and get the meaning out of what he's saying, and and be able to actually see the words, because it was hard to understand Mr. Keshe's language a little bit in places when I first started listening. So it was partly for my own benefit as well as the benefit of others. I wanted to be able to see those words myself, and eventually I just got involved with working with the website and doing some other work for the Keshe Foundation, and you know, helping them out, and that is a great way to go through the whole transcribing process. It's quite amazing what you can get out of You know, because you sometimes have to listen to the phrases over and over in order to type them fast enough or to understand what he's saying. And that can really go in deep if you, you know, it's like, that's one of the techniques of hypnosis in a way, is repeat. And probably if we could transcribe in our sleep, that would be an ideal way to get the information.
Indeed it would.
And some people probably do transcribe in their sleep because they're so devoted that they just keep on going in spite of the physicality dropping off. What else about all this? You see, well, suffice to say that the whole quote quest thing is really a fun thing, and we're collecting the quotes, like I was saying, from the site, and we'll have a little way to vote on it set up so that people can have their can vote for their favorite quotes, and then we'll make memes out of the favorite quotes so that we'll have something that, you know, goes out on a daily or weekly basis so that people can relate to these insightful, short, to the point quotes, and have a clickable link where they can go directly to it. And you know, for most of us that have a really busy day and you're going about, you got your job and the wife and kids and all this kind of action happening in our modern society, there's not a lot of time for you know, listening to a 3 or 4 hour workshop, or trying to go through and sort out information and trying to get to the core of the information and what you really should be listening to and what's really not that necessary. It might be nice but not so necessary, and so on. And if you get delivered to you just a nice succinct quote with a link that if you want to follow it up, you can go to that and spend a couple of minutes following up. And if you want to go further than that and listen to the whole workshop or part of that workshop, then you can do that as well. It gives different options, but the main thing is it's sharp and to the point and get you interested in the further, you know, further knowledge along the same lines. And I think it's great. I think what I would like to do is make kind of some sort of information portal that could be on different topics. Like, for example, I was thinking of what if I created a website that's how to build a spaceship, or you could call it build your spaceship, actually. And the way to build a spaceship is through these quotes, strangely enough, because some of these quotes give such exact information as to if you can grok that quote, if you can really get it, then you'll get that information that you need to get you to the next point in your construction, whether that's in the physical world or in the emotional world or in your soul world. There's different dimensions to constructing a spaceship. But I am convinced it can be what would you call it? The instruction manual can be made through these quotes, through different pointers, basically, to you know, you could see how you could do a word search on certain things about the spaceship, for example, and load up all the videos with spaceship terms in it, and then have little quotes that point to the points in the workshop that have the very exact information that's needed to, you know, to make your you know, deuterium GANs or whatever it happens to be. You might have 10 or 20 links that go to different times when Mr. Keshe has talked about deuterium GANs, as an example. And if you're building your engine for your spaceship, it might be important to you to have all the aspects that he mentioned, that term, in order to collect all the data in order to, get a handle on how you're going to control this thing, how you're going to build it, and whatnot. And it might be that just one of those links has exactly the information you need in order to get to the next step in your project. And that's what would be what I would hope for, to not overwhelm people with massive amounts of information, but yet be able to deliver to the people that need the information when they need it, just the right amount that is easy to digest and easy to incorporate into our existing mentality, so we're not overwhelmed. Because a lot of this teaching seems to be about focus, and I'm focusing, on one thing at a time, because we're told, there's as many types of reactors as there are stars in the universe. In fact, that's one of Mr. Keshe's quotes. I need to get that into the quote quest. Someone can beat me to it if you want to. There's as many types of reactors as there are stars in the universe. And I think that it's pretty much sums up this feeling of being overwhelmed, because there's a lot of stars in the universe, way more than we could count, let alone think about or consider. So that's a lot of reactors, that's a lot of information, that's a lot of combinations of various entities that end up creating this reactor combination. So we have to discriminate and disseminate and basically collect the things that are necessary for our, like I say, all you really need in your experiments is enough information to get to the next step. You don't need to know the whole plan and everything beforehand, all the details. All we really need is the information for the next step. If you're, as an example, maybe you're making GANs and you know that you have to nano-coat a copper plate, and something about maybe a zinc plate and so on, and then what's the next step? You're not sure, so you might want to look up all the information about how to create that certain kinds of GANs, or the next step to after the nano-coated plate is made, or some sort of search like that, or some sort of scenario set up, so that you can get focused on what is the next step I need to know. And then once that is known and worked with and understood, you go right away to the next step. And if the steps are in little sort of baby steps that we can digest through these quotes, I think that's a good way to guide ourselves through, because the universe, in a way, provides us with the information we need, usually just exactly when we need it, not too much before, I've noticed. So what they call just-in-time delivery. I've seen it so many times in running these workshops where, it's all of a sudden we need certain information, or picture or video or something, and I have no idea where it is, and then it magically appears just the right time, just exactly before you need it, and not a moment before, unfortunately.
And as you said, trusting ourselves and trusting that the universe is working with us, and it really is. It's I think Sandor said yesterday that it's we put our own handcuffs on ourselves with our beliefs and our filters, and forgetting. I don't know if Sandor said we forget, but I know as a human, I forget to trust myself and trust that what I need will be there. And when I remember, it always is.
Yep, and we got handcuffs on, but we also have the keys at the same time. That's the part we often forget. We have our own set of keys. We don't need the keys from some priest, or the keys from some politician or some other entity. we actually have the keys ourselves, and this is kind of a key concept that's good to know. So we can liberate ourselves is the thing I think that Mr. Keshe is trying to, and Caroline, trying to drum into us as much as possible, that we already have the means to save ourselves, basically. Yeah. What else? Okay, anybody else have anything they would like to present or talk about at this point? As long as it doesn't get me to have to present a video with audio in it, we're good to go.
Where's Lee?
Yeah, where's Lee when you need him? I don't think he's here today.
Oh, he has really done such incredible work, and yeah, he's been quite an inspiration to this group, I know. Yes,
I mentioned him in the last 25th One Nation, One Planet, One Race for World Peace as well. I don't know if I mentioned him by name, I don't think I did, but now everybody knows. But how he was saying that for a long time that he doesn't feel the feels. You know, some people feel the feels, other people don't feel the feels. He was, you know, he figured the type that didn't feel the feels, and so he would get his friends and others that might be a little more psychic or healers or whatnot, to feel the feels for him, to see if his devices were working, if they felt anything, and what they thought about them, and this kind of thing. But then, was it just a couple of months ago or something like that, he was showing us his latest device, one that you put your hand inside. And Lee accidentally said, and I can feel the fields in this one. I feel it on my hand. And I said, wait a minute, you're saying that you feel the fields? And you said you haven't felt the fields for the last 100 reactors you've made, but all of a sudden you're feeling the fields. That's a major step forward. And he said, kind of went, oh yeah, I guess that's right. I can feel the fields in here. There's, you know, no doubt about it. And then in the next week he made an improved device, a little different design or whatever, and he puts his hand in this one and says, and I can feel the fields are stronger in this one than the one I built last week. And I just went, kind of shook my head and said to him that, and not only now that you can feel the fields, but now you're giving us a gradient on how strong they are. And, you know, I think this is wonderful because I think that's the way it works, basically, is, you know, we go along and we don't feel the fields, I don't know what you're talking about, I don't feel any fields, and all of a sudden, I feel the fields, of course I feel the fields, why wouldn't you feel the fields? You know, it suddenly becomes okay and, in fact, completely natural, and you start wondering why everybody else doesn't feel the fields. I think that's wonderful, because I think eventually and probably shortly everybody will be able to feel the fields, and perhaps most people will be, and maybe they'll be able to start to tune in to the thoughts and feelings of others way more than they do now, and maybe in a short period of time we might all become basically telepathic, or be able to not exactly read the thoughts of others, but at least be sensitive to them, to be able to have some empathy and compassion for others, you know, based on their fields and their feelings and their what's being said and all that kind of thing. So I think we're coming up to a place of peace where we can start hearing each other more than we used to in the past, perhaps. maybe that's part of this new Me Too movement with the women as well. It's part of, a big part of that is just being heard. In the past, the women were talking about things like this, but they weren't being heard. They weren't being acknowledged and fully, just acknowledged and respected and so on. So this is the way forward in the future, is having a respect for whoever it is that we're communicating with, and especially on the international levels where the UN's involved, or politicians, or any entities that might be in the public domain. They're going to have to be much more sensitive to this whole phenomenon. Otherwise, it'll be like, boy, every day, literally every day now, I'm seeing another Canadian, either politician or sports figure or theater figure or a music figure. All of those realms are being, what would you say, people are being revealed in all of those realms that have apparently made abuses in the past, or some sort of, usually a sexual advance of some sort, or some sort of sexual abuse of some sort. And it's incredible to me to see, there's 2 prime ministers of Canadian provinces just the last week have had to step down. There's the head of in the U.S., there's a couple of top senators that have had to step down because of their abuses. There's the top Canadian Winter Olympics coach was canned. Top U.S. coach is also named. It goes on and on. And in many realms, not just in Hollywood, but in many different realms. And in many ways, it's very encouraging, because the corruption runs very, very deep in all of our systems, in all of our organizations. And it's not just in the developed world, it's in all of the countries of the world have their, the systems are corrupt in many ways. There's various forms of graft and bribery going on, and there's various forms of extortion, and the sexual trips, and the spying, and corporations doing their shifty things, and financial stuff going on, and spiritual stuff going on. But all of this seems to be coming to light. This is like literally the light is being shone on these things, so they can no longer sort of fester in our subconscious. We're bringing our subconscious to light, so that these things have to be confronted, and in a very direct way, because they can no longer be hidden. We're no longer good at hiding things like we were in the past. I think this will be the transparency will be the only way to move forward. Otherwise, if everyone is psychic and telepathic, if you're trying to hide something, you're going to look silly. Imagine trying to hide something from, I don't know, your mother or somebody that knows you really well, and they know that if you're lying, it just comes through immediately, and you won't even finish what you're saying, and they'll just look at you like, are you trying to pull one off on me? Are you crazy? And what if everybody's like your mother in a way? And what if we treat everyone like brothers and sisters? It was mentioned by... who was it? Was it Rui, or was it... no, I think it was Pete in the last 25th One Nation, One Planet. He was saying about his sister, unbeknownst to him, his twin sister, was having her appendix out, and he was having this unusual pain in his in his gut area. And because his mother was a doctor, he decided to tell her about this pain and try to get some sort of help with it, or some sort of advice and what to do. Should he go to a doctor, and so on and so forth. He started to explain where this pain was that he'd been feeling that day, and she said, "Oh, don't worry about that. It's because your twin sister is having an appendix operation right now, and you'll feel that pain go away in a couple of days." Because she knew they had a tight connection, and she knew that if one was feeling the pain, the other would. Well, what if it becomes like we feel the pain from all of our brothers and sisters on this planet? And if one hurts, we feel the pain from that, and we want to help. We want to try to connect and to understand that, and to alleviate that suffering, which is really the big game on this planet. It's all about alleviating the suffering of others and to be of service, right? So,
absolutely. Yeah. The other thing too to look at is, though, what has been considered acceptable. And there is still a big issue around this planet, is why do women who do the same job as a man get paid less? That still needs to change. It just cannot be considered acceptable. Just like until recently, it was acceptable to harass women.
Well, in a way, it was acceptable in the past, I can imagine, because if you look at just simply the size of the body and the way it works with muscles and so on, almost all of the labor in the past was done by like real labor that required strong muscles to be able to work the land and to kill the dinosaurs. I know there's no man when the dinosaurs were alive, but that's the visual image. Killing animals and stuff, all this things that they did back in the old days that would require a lot of strength. Now, also, having said that, the scientists have found out that the women of the past were way, way stronger than they are today, and the women of the past are mostly stronger than most of the men of today as well, because they had to do such intense, labor-intensive jobs. They were going virtually all day with heavy labor type work. That was part of the whole thing back there. So you can imagine that if a man could produce more from the slave owner's point of view, which was the mentality back then. That's the whole thing. That's where we come from, is a slave mentality, essentially. If you can imagine from the slave owner's point of view that the man would be worth more than the woman in terms of their labor value. They would see, okay, this really big guy with huge muscles can move more dirt for me today for the mine than the woman can. So we'll put her on cooking. It's a less intense job and not as important as getting the dirt out of the mine or whatever. So we pay the man more than the woman. Besides, the woman has to keep care of the kids because the man doesn't have time because he's working 12 hours a day in the mine and so on. So it was a different mentality. Now everything's changed. Women have as much opportunity as men in our virtual world. Sometimes you can't even tell who's at the other end, whether it's a male, female, or even an animal. It could be a smart dog that's able to finally get his paws going as thumbs and able to, start inputting on the computer or something. We don't really, we're becoming, I think, less, or in a way more blind to male-female polarities that way. But it takes time, and now is the time. There's no doubt about it. Like Justin Trudeau just gave a speech, and he was talking about the same thing. It's this is the time for women to have their time, and this is this whole thing has got to get cleaned up. They know that these attitudes are rampant in our political arenas, so to speak, but it's also common knowledge now with the politicians. You cannot fool around with this literally and get away with it, and they're literally dropping like flies, as the saying goes. And it's you could have a impeccable record in terms of your politics and doing all kinds of good things, but if you have this stain on your record, there's a good chance that you're going to go down right now and no longer be part of the political process. These people they're basically banned from politics due to their actions. Anyway.
And it is great to see it's changing. It is changing. I mean, women have only been allowed to vote for 100 years. I think it might even be less than that.
Less than that, yeah.
So just to realize the enormity of the task, and now it's moving much faster. And it's the learning, not like we can't accept homelessness, and yet we have, because we still walk by homeless people, and that's changing too. I mean, that's the joy, is recognizing, wait, if I walk by this person, it means I'm accepting it. If I, at minimum, stop and talk, and if I have money to give them, or just some ears to listen to their story. It's such a difference when we can realize, wait, I am part of this society. I cannot justify walking by someone who's homeless without interacting in some way, even if it's a smile, recognizing this is a human being, because so few people even want to look at a homeless person that they make them even more marginalized by not recognizing there's a being here. And that's changing, very changing, and I'm glad. I wish it could change faster. And with this beautiful new plasma technology, it will and is changing.
Yes, I think so. I think that's, well, I know so. I know that's the way it's going. It's amazing, actually, to see the changes that are happening in a way very quickly. You know, I know let me stop my share here. I was going to put the video back up. I'm having trouble finding it here. There we go. Yeah, it's a whole different world, and we are definitely so fortunate as humans at this time and place to be in this time and place. It's, you know, it's like a juncture of all the things are coming together pointing toward this source, it seems like. And here we are at a point in the evolution of this planet where basically the planet may become conscious of itself, or you could sort of look at it that way. There's a self-consciousness going on with the beings of this planet. And I think that's I don't think there can be a more amazing and wonderful time to be involved in the earth. In a way, say there was, 1,000 years of peace after whatever it is that we're going through now. Well, I think that'll be fine, but I'm looking forward to the transition to get to that point, because that's in a way where all the action is. That's where the chances for evolution are occurring, where you get to work with some of these tough emotions and different forces that are coming up, and different concepts and ideas where things are just starting out, and they may mature as a corporation or an idea or a concept, as it develops, but now we're on the really on the ground floor of the huge changes. So I think it's pretty amazing.
And that's why the duo of Mr. Keshe and Caroline is such a sweet one, because she does bring the feminine in, and it's helpful to see the dance between Mr. and Mrs. Keshe and how the interactions are. It's a very deep dance. And again, when you do sign up for the private classes, you get to see them even more personally interact. Sometimes on Wednesday's class, which is Caroline's private class, Mr. Keshe is there, and you just feel like you're part of you're invited into their home, and you're part of their home. It's really a good duo. They are a tremendous duo together. And I'm glad Mr. Keshe, his soul is so enormous. He understands the importance of his soulmate, Caroline, also interacting with us. It's a beautiful dance. I'm so glad she's part of this too.
Yes, indeed. Very much appreciated her inputs. Always elevates others, and she's always willing to help and to be of service. I mean, that's the first thing I noticed when I connected with Caroline and Mr. Keshe when I went to Italy, and for the first convention. And I had a big toothache thing happening, and I was in pain and suffering and whatnot. And first thing, Caroline recognized that, and first thing she wanted to do was help me, and had these herbs all lined up and gave me these little vials of herbs and things to put on my teeth. And it was very sweet, beautiful, immediate. She was immediately there with all of her cures at her disposal to help and to help alleviate that suffering. That's what it's all about. So I realized then that this is somebody who's not just empathetic and compassionate, but also capable of helping. So it's fine to have good feelings and all that, but not everybody can combine that with their skills and capabilities to actually help others, rather than feel compassion for them and so on. So definitely thank you, Caroline, for everything that you do. Of course, Mr. Keshe as well. Doug says the dynamic duo. Yeah. Okay, what else do we have here, ladies and gentlemen? Anybody have anything they'd like to talk about, bring up? Any new creations or any other ideas you'd like to discuss?
Oh, I
Who
was
is that?
hoping
Who is that?
up. Yay!
Hi, stranger. How you doing?
Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year, Mark. Good to see you again.
I'm filled with joy and love for everybody. But I reserve my words now because, of all our manifestation of all our souls, that we're in a position now where we understand each other. And we're in a position now where we've put ourselves in a condition where we don't even need these tools because we understand each other. We are in a position where we understand and enjoy our soul position that we've been taught for many, it's years now. We've been taught these things for years of enjoying them, and now are coming to a fruition, to our manifestation of being able to, we don't even need things like, we need these things like we created in the past of GANs and nano-materials. But the joy of it all is the friendship that we've created, the soul. You know, when you talk about Carol, that's why I had to come on, because I have stories that go back to the past, and I just wanted to share this one little story, and it just joyed my heart so much because of Mr. Keshe and Caroline, because there was a time when Rick was sick, and the Reactor group was supposed to happen, and he wasn't there, and I was ready to go, and I was ready to present, and I was really ready for everything, and guess what? He was sick, and he couldn't respond, and so I threw an email out, or a message out to Caroline, and she said, Mark, I don't know who you are, but I'm going to try to get back to you as soon as possible to find out what's wrong with Rick. And we found out he overslept. And that's the kind of caring family that we are. She didn't know who I was or where I was 2 years ago, 2 years or plus. But I was so scared for the love that the trust that I put in Rick to come to this group and give us, you know, support each and every week, that she said to me, I don't really know who you are, but I'll do the best I can because we're family and we have to reach out to one another. And that's the soul connection that we've made throughout this whole journey. And I've got plenty, you know me, I got plenty of stories and I got plenty of stuff. And I'm a little bit more reserved now than I was in the beginning. I was like on fire. I was on fire for all this stuff, but I understand now. It's a step-by-step process. It's a slow process, but it's a methodical process that we are all going through. And if we all want to run to the finish line so fast because we just want to be in that enjoyed enlightenment of what the torch that we are carrying, so that all of us, this whole worldly body that we are about, all of us, not just pockets of us, but all of us have a soulful connection, and we're starting to feel that on an earthly being or an earthly path or an earth. As humanity comes together, we start to feel this. And I just wanted to share that we are all connected. I cannot stop feeling my feelings towards this family. It's a family feeling. And I'll tell you what, when you talk about Mr. Keshe and Caroline, I'm an empty soul, but I feel that I'm a part of that family. Like I'm a child in the family. And if we all had that feeling towards one another, what a great place this would be to live in. What a wonderful place that we would say that we are all brothers and sisters, that we don't have, if we really look deep enough, that we don't have these divides within each other. I don't know. That's just, I don't want to go on and be melodramatic or anything like that. I just wanted everybody to know that I'm still with everybody. It's not that I self-promoted myself from graduation, saying that I've reached a point where I can't go any farther because of the teaching. Now, you know, there's many more aspects to this teachings, but as far as I was concerned, I did my task, and I'm still within the boundaries. I just 2 days ago, I got the stomach flu. The flu was going around. I went to my teachings that I was taught with all the Ganses and everything. Within 12 hours, I was cured, perfectly cured. My family and friends were like, what in the world is going on? My mother, my friend. I mean, the Gans water is where it's at. I'm just telling you right now, I don't know how to explain it. I've tried to explain it to people. They think I'm off my rocker when I try to tell them that the water is restructured in a beautiful way that can help your body to be able to accept it. But people are just naysayers and they don't want to accept them. But that's fine. But I'm just telling you, I'm testimony. I have testimony upon testimony, and it works. And we're at this point, and I feel that we're at an unveiling point where we're going to go from this point to the next point. We just have to be patient. And that's where we are right now, is if those, us that are here that accepted the things that Mr. Keshe and Caroline taught us, that so for some reason we have to just wait a little longer to get past the veil. We're just pushing the ball forward. But right now, it's hard for everybody to accept what's going to happen, and come and be part of our lives. Plain and simple. That's the way I assess it, is this: we are the forefront, the forerunners of what's to come. And now it would be like telling a great a horse like Secretariats, okay, run for the Kentucky Derby, but don't run too hard yet because we need to get to the finish line, but not yet. Hold back. It's like the jockey is holding in the third turn. Hold, hold, and then go to the whip. We're going home. Bring it home, brother. We're coming to bring it home.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's it sums it up pretty good. That's the feeling I get, is that we're on the cusp or the edge of something really big coming up shortly here, and all of our efforts and work sort of will pay off at that point, and that we'll have the understanding and it'll all make sense, and we'll be able to proceed forward where we were kind of treading water a bit before, perhaps. So yeah, I think that's the way of the future, and the near future rather than the far future.
So that's all I wanted to say. I just wanted to let everybody know I'm still here. I still love everybody. We're still family. And we're looking forward to the future. And it'll be fun. And it'll be great. Hey, I just wanted to pop in to say hi.
Very good. Very good. Thank you, Mark. Excellent.
I do have to jump in, and even though I wrote it in the chat, beautifully said, Mark. I love you so much. Thank you.
I love you, Mom. I love you very much. My mom, I tell my mom about you. You're my Canadian mom. My Canadian mom.
Oh, excellent.
My mom is Canadian, and she's 92, and she stayed up till 12:30 tonight. I said, Mom, are you going to stay up till a little longer? She says, well, I'm going to watch Jimmy Kimmel because this weirdo chick is on there. But anyway, she says, I'm going to stay up. I says, do you want to stay up another half hour? You can go on camera. She says, well, now that they have the ones in the daytime, maybe we can set up something better.
That would be wonderful.
92, she's got lots of testimony, and she's my family members look at her and they say to me, man, what is going on? She looks better now than she did, you know, what is going on? And I just tell them she drinks super water. I call it super water. And we know what that's all about. All of us in this group know what that's all about. And maybe I should probably come on and do a little tutorial, because my super water might be a little bit more than other people's. Because you got to remember, I remembered how to make sorosopo, which is something that Mr. Keshe talked about as a food additive that was one of the most correct additives that gave you all the minerals and vitamins that you needed. It was a fruit that actually came from South Africa. That wasn't, you can't get it here, but you can get it in a liquid form. But I actually made it in a GANS, and I use that in one of my, you know, as part of my water treatment, along with silver and gold and saffron, CO2. I use the CUO. I mean, I use a lot of combinations of the water in all of this into a gallon form, and I'm actually producing this and giving it to people. And I think that all these combinations of the water that are structured with all these different formulations that we're taking out of the contents of all these different formulas that are now structured in the water are giving our body exactly what it needs. He told us in the beginning, with food structure, you can get that structure in and mimic it in water if you break that down in a correct manner. And I think I've done it. I think I've achieved that. I think, I mean, I've known people that I used to take vitamins. I was a consistent vitamin taker for years and years and years. Supplements. And I know a guy that I bought the supplements for 40 years, and he says to me, well, what are you doing? 40 years? You've been buying these supplements for me forever. And I've been not. For the last 2 or 3 years, he says, you haven't been buying them, but you look the same. You actually look better than you did, because I was a little bit pudgy and overweight. Now I'm slimmed down. I feel good. I got a lot of energy. He says to me, well, what are you doing? And I says, well, I did this, and this. And he's trying. I mean, he's a nutritionist. I mean, this guy went to school to build nutritional value for people that had cancer and all. He's going like, how does this work? What are you doing? How did this happen? And I'm going like, well, you can go through all the tutorials, and you could do 2 years worth of videos and all these chats that Mr. Keshe taught us and all. And you can learn how to do it, or you can just drink the water and I can kind of explain to it how you, and he just doesn't. But I've got people, like I said, that are, it's working. It works. I don't know how else to explain it. So it is what it is. And if you don't experiment, and if you don't get out there, and if you don't do the footwork yourself, and literally it starts from the feet. And if you look back 2 years ago, I used to soak my feet in salt water to start this.
Right. Yeah. Good point.
It's a process. It is definitely a process and a little bit of work, but if you want to put the time in, the effort in, you get the results in the end. And I believe I've saved my mother, and I've given her. I mean, this woman's 90. I mean, you know what? I just want to say this one more thing. I don't mean to keep taking up time, but I'll tell you this, and it's not a very good story, but it's a great story. It's kind of But anyway, my mom's 90. When we started all this, she was like 90 years old. She was going, my dad passed away. My mom was going downhill, but she had this certain problem that she couldn't hold her bowels, and it would leak out of her bowels. And she didn't want to leave the house because her bowels were so loose that she was scared to eat things, and things were like, so like 2 or 3 weeks ago, you said the bismuth was something that was in Pepto-Bismol that we found out about along the way. Well, remember, Rick, I made bismuth with those rocks like 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. I made those rocks with that bismuth and the combination of bismuth, and I got it written down. But anyway, it was part of my solution that went into her, and she said to me, she says, Mark, out of all this stuff, I don't have a loose bowel anymore. I pass, and my system, I can eat what I want, and I don't have any loose bowel anymore. And I have a regular passing, and I go potty good every day. So I eat what I want, and I sleep what I want, and I do what I want. And I said, Mom, it's just like a miracle. And I didn't even talk about the bismuth and all that. And it just, one more confirmation that this stuff just keeps on. It works. It works. It's a miracle. It works. And like I said, I've got testimony on top of.
Well, that's great. And as far as testimonies go, if you have something written up that you want to send to me that we could put in the testimonials site, you don't have to use your mom's full name and that kind of stuff if you want, but it'd be nice. She don't care. Yeah, she doesn't care. She's 92. What's her to lose at this point? but you know, it's an important point you brought up about the older we become. I've noticed the more important our bowel movements become to us, and you know, it can be so off-putting to have irregularity, and the prime consideration of most older folks is the fear of constipation, you know, and being overly constipated. And it's a big one because it affects your health and it affects your clarity of your mind and all kinds of things like that, even your vision. So it's so important to have the regularity, and if you're accomplishing that through the GAN's materials and through your the way you're approaching your mother's condition and so on, that is just fantastic. And that means you know, much relief for people in their older stage of life, and probably would be helpful for everything from dementia to Alzheimer's and so on as well. In fact, there's no doubt about it that it is. There's lots of testimonials about that already.
I think so too. I think there's something to be said about it. And, you know, like I said, we're just on the cusp of this. We're just starting, you know, like she sits with people in the church where she goes to church, and they talk about all their ailments. And she comes home to me and says, these people are telling me about all these ailments, and I don't have them like they do anymore. Should I tell them about this? She says, they're going to think that you're a witch doctor.
Yeah, well, that's the problem.
That's the problem. And it's not FDA approved, and, you know, they're going to tell their doctor. But nonetheless, I've got a few faithful followers that said, I'm going to try it. And I've got one, my best friend's mom, my friend lives in California, and I always told him, listen, I'll take care of your mom no matter what, because she still lives here by me. I'll take care of her, whatever handiwork that needs to be done. And she had a terrible life. She lost 2 husbands, a daughter, and her son moved to California. She's got nobody to give her any love here. So I just told her, listen, I'm always here for you. But every time I called her, she was so down and disappointed and just dismayed that life just gave her a pile of you-know-what. So I said to her, you know, I'm working with this stuff. My mom has taken it. Why don't you try it? So now she has, since November of 2017, she's drank 4 gallons of GAN's water. Okay, 4 gallons of GAN's water. And when she calls me now, she says, Mark, how are you? I just called to see how you're doing. I've known this woman for 40 years, and she has nothing but called me, but, oh, I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
I'm fine. But just in the last 4 months, it's, how you doing? Just calling to see how you are. A Happy New Year. Did your holidays go well? I've never heard this woman talk like this. Ever. Ever.
Oh, that's great.
You know, so these are just small little increments, you know, and if we could get our family members to just take note of what we're doing to them, for them, and giving them a better quality of life, I think that would be just a huge step for a handful of people.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's all. I'm sorry. I love everybody. I love all you guys. I'm like, we're all family and friends, and if I can share just a little bit of happiness with everybody, I hope that 2018 will just flourish into something that we would never expected and never thought that ever could happen. But I have big hopes and big dreams, and if there's anything I can do for anybody, please just let me know. Get a hold of Rick, get a hold of me. I mean, I'm on Facebook. If I can kind of help anybody, I'd be more than willing to share whatever I can with anyone. You know that. I've been here for a long, long time, and I would never fail in my duties to my family.
Right on. Thank you so much, Mark, for volunteering that. And appreciate your strength over the years. Thank you. Any questions for Mark or any comments about that?
We want to thank Rick foremost for being here to be the host of all of our family. Thank you, Rick.
Yep, I was sick once in 4 or 5 years and missed, I think, part of the workshop, or at least
scared the hell out of me. I think
I missed most of it. I think I was an hour and a half late or something, and yeah, that was a rough day. John, I think I heard your voice. Go ahead.
Yes, I was just going to add, this is all thanks to a magic water.
Water.
Yeah.
Super water, as Mark calls it. That's a good name.
Here the amount of water I give away here, they know it as Johnny's water.
Yeah, well, Super Water, Johnny's Water. We could have lots of brand names. You can imagine having a local source wherever you go. It'll be sort of like we have the craft beers, and we have all the different kinds of mineral waters and spring waters and other kinds of waters. There's waters that brag they have nothing in it, you know. No sugar added, no anything added. They have a whole list of things that aren't added. No gluten, no this, no that, and bragging about it. So we live in a world with all of these options, and yet it seems like we have a great market. Once we get approval of this process of this, you know, GANs making in this GANs material, it seems like it's going to be catch on like wildfire as far as you know, if the opportunity is there. Now, if the pharmaceutical companies or other corporations decide to put a squeeze on, that might be difficult, but it's going to get harder and harder for them to shut down such beneficial processes in the future, I think.
They'll have to shut down Nestle.
Well, that's one of the ones that produces water and so on, but
they got 70% of the world's production of waters.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. These days, any corporation is fair game for those that want to destroy the reputation of such corporations, and they have to be really careful about their CEOs and about their managers they have and everything else, because things happen. I mean, look at what's happened to Volkswagen. Their reputation is ruined now. It's getting more ruined all the time. They just came up that Volkswagen's basically was involved with a company that was doing testing with monkeys, where they were putting monkeys under diesel exhaust fumes and seeing what the results were while the monkeys watched cartoons on TV. And it was kind of a failed experiment, because the exhaust fumes they used were nowhere near as toxic as the actual real world exhaust fumes, so the test was completely invalid and just ended up making a bunch of people upset because they were doing live testing on animals and whatnot, for example. So you know, people complained about the monkeys were being experimented on. So they apologized for experimenting on monkeys and went back to just experimenting with humans in real life instead. So it's a strange world we live in now, where you know, if you're a major corporation, it doesn't really matter that much. It used to be you could throw your weight around. Now it's maybe they're just overweight and period, and need to trim down. But we'll see. It's definitely a time of flux. There's no doubt about that. And in a way, the bigger that you are, the harder you fall in these times of flux. So looking forward to lots of action that way. I like to see disruptions. I like to see sort of things mixed up and kind of resettled out, and I think it's good to redistribute that kind of energy every once in a while. So again, we're fortunate to live in these times where we get to witness huge major changes going on.
Yeah, we could also call it, instead of flux, fluid dynamics.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, and some of the same laws of fluid dynamics and the way the vortexes work and the turbulence and the cross currents and back currents, back eddies are very important. If you look at the way a river flows and along the edges of the river, you can have back eddies going backwards to the flow of the river, for example.
Yeah, go back to studying Victor Schauberger, the way he used to watch all the trouts going up the cascades and everything.
Right.
Just stay quiet in the stream going down, and they just stay in the same place. The water doesn't carry them down the stream.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And just by observing the nature there, he was watching the trees there and watching the serpents on the water and the trouts just being just keeping quiet there in the water, and the water just flowing by them. It's incredible the way he observed everything and learned so much about it.
Yeah, how they could go up the waterfall. Like salmon do that in my location. They can make these fairly magnificent leaps up a waterfall, and you wouldn't think they'd be able to do that and be successful, but they have a way of using the waterfall's energy to energize their leap up the waterfall, actually. So it's quite fascinating.
And then he had the vortex within the vortex. He sort of copied the horns from these reindeer. Special effects that produces.
Yeah, I had actually pipes, water pipes that were designed. You'd think a round water pipe, you know, a straight, round, smoother the surface, the better, and the inside of the pipe, you would think it would give the maximum flow. But it's not actually true. It's one that has a certain kind of spiral and, pardon me?
A spiral and a kink.
Yes.
Part of it is squashed on one
Very
side.
much like the horn of a ram or whatever, like you're saying, but over a longer spread for a pipe. And he actually, Schauberger hires someone to engineer to do tests for him about that, and found out that these specially formed pipes are actually more efficient in the flow of the water than the smoothest kind of pipe they could come up with, which I think was glass at that time.
And he made this Repulsine. Repulsine was a flying saucer.
Yeah, I call it repulsine, but I'm not sure how it's pronounced. Yeah, and that's interesting too. Maybe that'll come up again, having to do with the compression of air inside this device, and compression and expansion actually of the fluid called air. And it could be that, I mean, according to what I've read and understand, that is a plasmatic process that occurs inside that device, because it's the air ionizes when it expands and ends up giving it different qualities and different characteristics than it would be if it was just regular air. And so
You can mix it with the idea of interaction between two fluids or two fields.
Yep.
Assimilated in that way, and think of the way the interaction between 2 or 3 different fluids, or
Yeah, seem to be counter-rotating fields involved there, yeah. It's always, to me, since I was a kid, I knew there's something special about counter-rotating magnetic fields. This idea, I think, from probably when I was just a few years old, it was somehow stuck in my little brain back then, and has always been with me through the rest of my life.
We must be twin brothers. I've always had this idea also.
I think a lot of us that have had connections to the space technology and, you know, sort of the alien thing, and you know, maybe it's partly to do with science, growing up with science fiction when we were young or something, but I think it's more to do with just a basic connection that that people have when, you know, when you investigate closely. It's it's like the brothers and sisters that are twins have a connection. In a way, there's people that are supposed to be working on this kind of technology, and they have a connection, possibly from past lives. Remember, you know, 3 millennia when we did this together, John? 3 millennia ago? Remember the good times we had with the saucers back then? Before they banned them that time? You know, Mr. Keshe says this is the 3rd time around of trying to create these kinds of energy systems. So, and he says this time is the time it's going to go through and be correct. Seems.
In Spanish, you got the saying, la tercera es la vencida. The 3rd time is the one that conquers.
3rd time's the charm, is what they say in English sometimes.
I've never heard of it in English. Huh?
3rd time's the charm.
3rd time lucky.
3rd time lucky, yes, that's another one, yeah.
All the famous sayings in the different languages.
Yeah, there's some truth to those quaint little sayings sometimes. Okay, what else we got for questions and comments here? Florian in the live stream says, still working on something. Soon you'll be able to do a show and tell on it. The Zoom link, let me let you know, I'll put the Zoom link in right now, but it will be, I'll put it in the live stream. He's looking for it there. Oh, the broadcast has ended, so I need to see if I still have that in the chat here. Just give me a minute. Yes, it's still there. Okay, there's the link in the live stream, but unfortunately that link probably won't be valid next week. What I'm going to do with the Zoom link is we'll have a new Zoom link number, and not sure if that's going to be the public teaching or if it'll be a new number yet. And then we'll go to the live stream webinar rather than the Zoom webinar rather than the Zoom meeting room that we use now. And then we'll have more options for broadcasting and more options for a few other features. So it may be a different Zoom room next week. So this 963-135-490 is the current number. That will probably not be valid next week if you just have the habit of clicking on that number in order to get into the group. So the correct Zoom meeting ID will be part of the Keshe Plasma Reactor group notices that I put out. You'll just be able to click on it there and go directly to the Zoom room, or Zoom webinar rather. So just to give people a heads up on that.
Rick, does that mean the public teaching Zoom number is going to change too?
I don't think so. I think that's all going to stay the same.
Okay.
There just might be a conflict with this meeting and the next meeting. If it happened to be a public teaching, it might be a conflict there if I use the public number. But I'm going to work that out with Vince. We'll figure it out for the correct number and let people know. Okay, what else would we like to bring up here? Any other comments, concepts, ideas? Haven't seen any physicality stuff yet today, but hey, some days are physical and some days are more from our thoughts and minds and feelings.
The reactors have flown somewhere else today.
I got a kind of a question that might help me to explain some things to people that ask me questions, if I may.
Absolutely, go ahead, Mark. That'd be great.
Well, it's a mechanical question inside the body, and it was posed to me how this process works, and I tried to explain it, but I'm not too sure of it myself. So the input of the body, once we ingest food, any sort of food, it goes down into our system. And once we receive the food into our system, it's a breakdown of the food by our acids and our enzymes. Once those acids and enzymes start breaking down the food, my question to the group or to you is, Rick, once that happens, does that create a gas so that the blood in our oxygen takes that energy that is being broke down from the matter state and absorbed into the body? How is that energy transferred? And that was what I was trying to explain, is that once that matter state is taken into the body, you know, the acid and the enzymes start breaking that food matter down. But how is that food matter, you know, with all the proteins and all that the matter state is worth, is absorbed into the body? Is it absorbed into the body by a gassy state, liquid state, matter state? I didn't know how to explain that to the...
No, it's Mr. Keshe, the way I understand the way Mr. Keshe explained it, excuse me, is when we eat something, as soon as it goes into our mouth, it starts to become a GANS. Everything in our body is in a GANS state, essentially. So you could think of it, say, I don't know, a piece of bread or something. When you put it in your mouth, right away the digestive saliva and juices of the mouth are starting to mix with that. That's what the chewing's all about. We're breaking it down and we're mixing it. Actually, it ends up being more of an alkaline than an acid condition a lot of times, depending on the nature of the food we're taking in. So it can actually be an alkaline breakdown, very much similar to using the sodium hydroxide, or the lye material, and you put it in with food, and it over a period of days it breaks down the food. That's one way that you can break down the food into the GANs and make that into GANs of food, or mix that in with your CO2 GANs and this kind of thing. So back to the food in the mouth. So you can imagine that food becoming, a lot of it starts out in the GANs condition to start with. Some of it might be in the matter level, like you were saying. And you can imagine this GANs or matter going into the mouth, mixing with the saliva, and then going down into the stomach, where it gets further broken down into all of its component parts and whatnot. Basically, you're turning everything into GANs at that point, liquid GANs material. And then the way I understand it is, once that's in a GAN state, then the body converts that to plasma, and it's the energy from the plasma that powers our body, or that we get the energy from. And so the idea is that matter goes in, turns to GANs, the GANs turns to plasma, then the plasma turns back to GANs, and then the GANs back to the matter level, and then out the other end, basically. So there's this process of matter to GANs, GANs to the plasma back to the GANs, and then back to the matter level again. And so that's the way I understand the basic process going on there. In order to extract the energy, we extract it as a plasmatic energy, actually. And Mr. Keshe has also mentioned that only around 20% of the energy of the body comes from the actual food, and that we get 80% from the environment and conditions of the environment and other absorption other than through the food.
Yeah, through your skin and your lungs.
Right, yeah.
Now, I would add that once you've got GANs in your bowels, it'll, when you get it out of your system, that remains as a GANs. Why should it go back to matter state? It's all the same as a urine or whatever you get out of your body. Another thing is your intestine is impermeable. It's just like the sausage skin. Nothing can go through it unless you puncture it. And that's why you only absorb the fields of that GANs water or GANs fluid you've got in your pipes inside. You've got a pipe that starts in your mouth, goes down the other end, and everything goes through your body, but it's not in your body. And the same thing happens in your lungs with the oxygen. That's what Mr. Keshe has been telling us lately. When you breathe, you're absorbing the energy from the oxygen. You're not assimilating the oxygen.
Yeah, he's quite clear about that, about the oxygen not passing through the walls of the lung and this kind of thing. Go ahead, Mark.
Well, in a visualization of like you said, a continuous pipe from your mouth to your exit point. It's a continuous. It's the same way with from your nose to your for air input. But my question to the group is the exchange point, the GANs or the material point has to become a gassy material. It has.
How do you figure it has to become?
GANs water, it's liquid. I mean, and you're working with the fields. It has nothing to do with gas or liquid.
I mean, the sun.
A gas is like a. Well, you got to look at a gas as like a non-material. It's like oxygen or it's like CO2.
But your pipeline is not full of gases. Only when you start fasting.
No, but your intestines and your lungs have ports. All those portals have to have some sort of input. And the input comes from the gassy materials in which that is being created within that pipe. There has to be there has to be some way that the pipe allows that which you take into the bottom. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's true.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mario.
All right. Mr. Keshe, in the stomach workshop.
Hi, Mario.
Yeah, hi, Mark. It said the stomach is a nanocoder. It's nothing more than that. It's just a place with it's no different than your nanocoating bucket. So it's just nanocoating the food. When the food starts to pass into the intestines, something to do with the thymus decides what energy is going to extract from the food at certain positions in the intestines. And it's an energy exchange. It's literally a sympathetic vibration. They'll tune to the frequency and exchange energy. It's nothing passing through the walls of the intestines.
Well, it still has to be a portal. There still has to be a portal that goes into your body.
No, there's no portal. It's an energy exchange.
Well,
It's
whatever
just-
you want to call it, it has to somehow weigh from a matter material that enters into our body.
No, it's a
Well, you
GANS
want to give it a
material.
vibrational coating, But I understand, Mario, that you're a vibrational coder. It translates from our inner to our outer. But the point I'm trying to make is, from which we take within has to translate from the tubing that we take it within, whether it be a vibration or a portal or some other means of gassy material. It has to enter into our physical being.
You're
Well,
thinking of a matter state, and it's
No,
not.
the matter state never enters our being.
Well,
Never. It goes into our mouth and goes out the exit point.
Well, gas or matter, though. So it's not a gas. It's a nanomaterial. It's a GANS material. And
right.
also,
The GANS is a broke down matter material.
well, it's
Well, there you go. It's a gas.
but in a nano, right? Meaning it's got a crystalline structure so that the fields can interact and it can move. It's not locked into position. So it has allowing for flow of energy. It's a nanomaterial.
Right. So that's an interconnection between the wall and the body.
Yeah.
No, but there's a connection between the lymph nodes and the thymus and the intestines. And I don't, you have to go back and watch the stomach workshop again to see what's going on, Mark. Right. So but the Eskimos can get everything they need because the thymus is controlling. It's just an energy exchange. So there's an ability to retune, and you need calcium. So it finds a way to connect to the calcium. It finds a way to connect to the whatever to get what it needs. But it's 100% energy transfer, Mark. There's no matter. It's GANS from the minute it enters your mouth, or as soon as at least it gets past where there's air interacting, and then it just nano-coating it, and then allowing energy transfer. Nothing more.
It's just like the cup of life, the way the cup of life works.
I understand all that point. I'm with the group 100%. But the patient that I asked, that asked me to explain it to him was, does the material or the matter state go from, how does it transfer from that matter state into energy through our system?
The stomach nano-coats it.
I understand. I'm not trying to explain that to, I'm trying. I can kind of make my point here is because, when we make our CO2 kits, and you can just see it in the two different processes. Some people use electricity and some people don't. And if you don't use electricity, you don't get the amino acids like you do with the people that do use electricity. And once you do use electricity and you gather all those amino acids, it's because you're exciting all those enzymes that are breaking down those plates. And that's what creates the enzymes or the amino acids on top of that CO2 kit. It's a fatty material. And once that fatty material starts to create, it's a gas that created that fatty material. I'm not arguing at any point. I'm just trying to explain to a patient of mine the transfer of material into our body. And I thought that it was a gassy transformation because it was easier for the body to absorb a gas than a material.
Okay, look, Mark, think in terms of magnets. It's a magnet, nothing more. The energy moves, one magnet interacts with one magnet from a distance. It's not really a distance, it's a connection of the fields. That's how it's done. It's done with magnets, literally.
Well, Mario, how would you tell a person or a friend of yours that, listen, if you drink this water that's all structurally connected to all these things that we broke? Well, I got to explain this to these people. They don't, I could tell them, oh, it's a beautiful thing of a cup of life, but they want to know the process. They want to know how I did this. They want to know how it's going to react in their body. And I'm trying to give them the A's and B, the building process. I mean,
Mark, you're really the only.
How the interaction of the stomach and the body and the gans is, it's all in the health workshops many times over, and some of the other workshops as well.
Yeah, but these poor people, they're in their 70s and 80-year-old. They're not going to sit there for hours and hours and look at.
No, but I'm saying that you should refer back to them to refresh yourself about how the process inside the body, because it's not about the gas, it's not about the matter level stuff, it's about the gans being converted into plasmatic energy, which is what we use to run our bodies, and then the plasmatic energy,
that was leftover. My question. So the stuff that we see in our broke down ganses that are in our containers are the exact same thing that we start to have the process in our mouth.
How does a magnet give you the field of a magnet? The magnetic field goes through your bowels into your body, but nothing crosses over. Is that clear?
Yeah, you really need to go to the horse's mouth. You really need to look at those first health workshops. The answers that you're looking for are in they're in all of them, but especially the one in the stomach. I think there's one, I don't remember.
I think there's one on the mouth too. I think the mouth might have that.
That's right. The mouth and the
stomach, and I think there's intestines too, or the other part.
That's right. Yeah. So those would have the answers you're looking for, Mark. Us speculating about it is not. It's not good. I mean, it's okay, but I mean, you really, if you're going to know the answer to those questions, you really got to go directly to Mr. Keshe.
Yeah,
because it is complex.
Well, I understand that, Mario, but it just in a simple layman's term, I would just ask the group if I could just tell a patient of mine how this is transferring the energy from what I'm giving them to what they're feeling. That's all. I mean, I can't give them, 10 hours of. I could do it. I've done it. I know how it works. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but see, we're all still students too. So you're asking the students to give you an explanation of what Mr. Keshe taught, where we could get it wrong. We think we have it, but you need to go back.
I just opposed it to the group. That's all. If anybody had a reasonable answer, they could give it to me. If not, that's fine. I'll go back and do it again. It's not that hard for me to do. I'm just asking. I just came on tonight and I just threw this question out there. That's all. It's no big deal.
Yeah,
how do you explain a cup of life?
Well, I can't. Like I said, John, I can't tell these poor 60 and 70 and 80-year-old people it's a cup of life. They want an answer. They want to know what's inside it, how it works. They're not unintelligent people.
Put a magnet in a cup.
Yeah, but John, I can't tell them there's magnets in a cup. It's
talking about.
Well,
yeah, but Mark. Oh, look. If you don't know the answer to the question yourself, then you need to know the answer. How can you explain it to somebody if you're asking the same question? See, so you need to go back and watch those workshops and understand it. And then when you do, then don't just explain it to them. Come back and tell us what you've learned. You know, in other words, if you don't know the answers, you can't explain it to them. It's because you don't really understand the answers. So you need
How can I wait a minute, Mario? How can I know the answers? If
you go to the workshops yourself and ask those direct questions and look at the answers there. They're there.
I'm at the workshop. This is my workshop here.
No, he's talking about the health teaching workshop in this example where it's laid out 3 or 4 times that Mr. Keshe went through this procedure very specifically in order to educate people about what happens inside our body when we take in food. And he's been through this, I would say, probably a dozen times in detail, but it's presented in the health teaching workshops as we've outlined, in the stomach, in the food, in the mouth one, and in the intestine one specifically. And I know they're in other workshops as well, but I can't pinpoint
well,
those.
I'll go back and I'll try to research as much as I can. I thank you for all the help, though. Appreciate it.
Well, we can give you some information, like I gave you the information that I remember from Mr. Keshe talking about it.
Right.
And
that's all I wanted. That's all I needed. That's all I asked.
Yeah, if we keep it simple, then your explanations can be simple too. And you know, you can tell them, well, the food turns into GANs inside your body. Well, what's GANs? Well, GANs is a gas in a nano-solid state, and it's something that we experiment with. Here's a bottle of GANs. Here is some stuff that I made that's GANs, and you know, so on. You have to give them some information in order for it to make some sense to them, but try to keep it as simple as possible so that you know, even a child should be able to understand the basics. And many older people have become like children. They need that childlike kind of explanation, very simple, and then they just go, oh, I see now, and they think they know it, and that's all that's important to them, really. That's you know, to get some sort of grasp on it. They don't have to have they don't really want to know everything about it, because as soon as you start to explain everything about it, they shut off and their attention wanders somewhere else anyway. They want the quick version, like, just tell me that it's you know, it's all okay, and that you know, it's working in some kind of sciencey way that, you know, makes my science mind happy the way you explain it. And most people are quite happy with a very simple explanation that's no more than a couple of lines, because we lose them after that, unless they're really, really serious. And that's the rare person that's as serious as we are, that sticks with it for years and keeps coming back and so on. That's the true devoted student. You know, most people don't want the university course. They want the really fast version, the news bite version. Just tell me in 10 seconds or less what it is that this is. You know, in spite of you being, you know, having years and years of education about it and experience and so on, and you could go on for hours and hours. But they don't want that. They just want something very simple that their mind can get around, and that's all that's needed, until later on they might ask for more details, and then you can start launching into all the intricate parts that you might know and be able to give some good information to others. I think we have to be careful not to overwhelm people. I know it's that way with myself. I get overwhelmed if someone starts suddenly giving me a bunch of barrage of information. I just, you know, shut down, and I can't hear anymore at a certain point. So
a couple of weeks ago, we got to know how it works on the leaves of the tree. It's the same process.
Right. Well, it just gets hard to explain to somebody, well, what's happening in your body is the same as the leaves of a tree. And they go, oh, what?
Same as in your lungs, yeah.
There you go again. So it's giving all these comparisons, which we know of, and Mr. Keshe is very, very good at giving us explanations that are multi-level all at the same time. So he'll interweave the leaf with the the ganses, and with our breathing, and with the way the galaxies are formed, and back to the nano, and back to the atom, and into the vacuum, and all this kind of thing. He's easily moves from one dimension to another, from one scalar quantity to another, and it's beautiful to watch and beautiful to be part of. It's difficult to do, to impart that to someone, because they have to kind of follow along at all these different levels sort of at the same time, and that's not the usual scientific method. The scientific method would be stick to your level and don't go outside of it. If you're a chemist and you're dealing with chemistry, you're not dealing with physics, you're not dealing with atomic, you're not dealing with quantum, you're not dealing with nano, and you're not dealing with macro. You're dealing with chemistry. And if you're a biologist, you're dealing with biology. You will not go into the realm of chemistry and physics and so on and so forth. We become compartmentalized, and in a way we expect our explanations, like, to come from the so-called authorities of these particular worlds. But each of these worlds is particular to only its own world. It's if you're a biologist and that's all you've studied, then you're not studying so much about the nano world, and you're not studying about the atomic and quantum and the macro world, and the galaxies and all of that kind of thing. It's just not relevant when you're trying to study little viruses or bacteria or something. It's the focus becomes limited because of the way our teaching is so specific. It limits our ability to think in other realms, to think in other ways. And that's the kind of the shame of the modern system, is because it's designed to create worker bees that are really highly specialized in one particular job, so they can get that job done and communicate their results to the other worker bees to get the big job done. If it was a little different, perhaps we would be able to handle that situation in a better way for everyone. Perhaps we would educate people on all of the dimensions, so they have more of a background on how the other disciplines are working, so they can mesh and work with those disciplines and understand what it is they're talking about on their levels, and see that all these different disciplines don't have to have artificial barriers between them. If we understand that the processes and the way the universe works is all the same, it's the principles are the same, and the more we try to break things down and split them down and make things in compartmentalized in little boxes, then the more we put our blinders on to the possibilities, in a way. Doug says, we must become masters of creation. A big ask. Or as Mr. Keshe would say, we become the plasma manipulators. It was a term that was used at one point. I don't like the term manipulator so much, but we could become, say, plasma masters would be maybe a nice term, as opposed to, he's mentioned that people fall into general realms in planet Earth, and the physicality level is where most people hang out. Everything is physical, and everything has a direct relationship with the physical world and physical things. And then there's the nano world, where the entities of the nano world have a little more elbow room. They're able to move a bit more. They can facilitate the fields better, and they start to interact with the plasma. And then we have the nano world, where those people that can interact and use the nano world have a different viewpoint than the ones that are more stuck in the physicality or the nano world, and from the GANs world, then one can become familiar with the plasma world, the world of the fields and feeling the fields and this kind of thing. And then there's another level above that where it's not only about the plasma and fields, but it's about becoming a controller or a manipulator, or able to work with those fields and become a master with them, as opposed to just getting to know them and being unfamiliar with that realm. So there's different levels of existence, different levels of perception, and we can learn to know all of them, actually, and to jump from one level to another when required. Maybe we would work in the nano level for a while as part of our experiments and create some ganses in order to take them to another level where we are working with the plasma and so on. And maybe it requires us to go back to the physicality level to work something out there and help somebody in the physicality level to get to the next level. For example, that's one of the jobs that occurs, is to help others get to the next level. And that's you know, a nice job to have, a good job opening for those that can help elevate others get to the next level. So Mr. Keshe has set that up in quite a few times. I think probably 3, maybe 4 times that I've seen him describe these definite levels, and that most of the population hangs out in the physical level, and lesser people are able to work with and handle and interact with the higher levels, of existence, up into the master of the plasma, the true creator level, which we can all be. It's not something that's out of reach. It's something that we can aspire to.
Rick, this is your co-host, although I'm no longer showing as co-host, but I did see that Mark Carlton had his hand up for quite a while, and I'm not sure if he had a question or a comment he wanted to make, and his hand went down again, but just in case he did want to ask something. It happened.
I do.
There you go.
I do.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much, Elizabeth, for bringing that up. I had overlooked that. Go ahead.
And thank you, Lady Liberty, for inviting me in. And hello to the beautiful souls and the beautiful family that I'm experiencing. I made a few notes. I'm going to be a little polemical here, but I want to thank Rick for all his hard work that he's done. I remember listening to Mr. Keshe, and when he was saying it was only myself and Rick, and we were working together, and I guess there were no other students in one of the classes or something like that. So I appreciate that plasma unwinding, Rick, and thank you very much. You've created a beautiful structure, as many other people have as well, but I want to thank Rick. And then I made a note what Libby had said about women doing 70, well, I say women do probably 70 to 80% of all the work done in the world in the matter state. And hopefully, as Mr. Keshe had said, this technology is going to change the politics. I had listened to one of the earlier teachings yesterday, and we're introducing a new science, Mr. Keshe's, and a new ethos and a new language. So it's like turning around a battleship. It's not like a rowboat that you can turn around in a few feet of water, but it takes a little time. So it's probably, I was equating it to like Christmas under the tree, at least at our house. We had to wait till Christmas Day to open the presents. So we all know all these presents are under the tree for humanity. Some in health, billions in new materials, and many other things, and we want to open the packages now. But I think it's going to take an orderly unwinding, as Mr. Keshe had said when he was something about the disaster in Nepal. And this must have been years ago, because I think the teaching was probably from 2015. And he said if we would have, I'm not exactly sure how he put it, but he said we could have collapsed the government in Nepal and also the neighboring governments with the technology somehow. So it has to be an orderly unwinding. The presents will be opened. It's going to be so beautiful when that starts to happen and unfolding. I was also thinking that we need some more pedagogicals, some teaching aids. Like I remember, and maybe Rick, you could explain this, I called it Rick's Love Machine, and that was the the battery with the magnets on the bottom and the heart shaped. Was that a copper wire? And it was spinning. And maybe I could take a break and you could just tell me about that. Is that actually a plasma thing that's happening? But I think that's an excellent teaching aid, and it would start a great conversation. Or if you saw it in a store window, or if people came over to your house, they say, "What is that?" And maybe Rick, you could explain it, because I don't fully understand that.
Okay, just give me a minute.
And you could say it was made with the greatest intent to generate loving fields as it spins, because that's what I was seeing when I saw it spinning.
Yes,
and it's
indeed.
an excellent for a child to see as well. And I have a few more points after you explain that, unless you want me to keep going.
Well, let me just, yeah, you can keep going after I show you here. Let me just get a fresh battery so I can make a successful attempt.
So that should be produced in the factories, and we all should buy one, and that way it's a beautiful conversation piece.
Well, it isn't. It isn't. It all kind of depends on how you look at it, basically. How you look at it in a plasmatic way.
Okay.
I mean,
okay.
Everything in life can be looked at plasmatically if we wish to. So, okay, there's a good one. So, okay, let me get my video down here. And I'll just get a little closer. So what he's mentioning here, what Mark is mentioning, is the is this little device
the one
here.
with the heart. Yes. Yes.
This is very simple. It's just a piece of wire bent into a heart shape. I normally solder the bottom piece. This particular one is just not soldered at the bottom there. It's just bent together and into a heart shape. And so what it is this is a copper wire, and this is, I've got a battery here and a neodymium magnet. So basically we have an electrical source and a magnetic field in this. In fact, the whole battery becomes the magnetic field too, because it's stuck on there, and the magnetic field from the magnet essentially goes through the whole battery. So, and you know, that just sits there. It doesn't do anything unless it is interacted with something like this. And well, let me just demonstrate. Actually, I have to put a little dimple in the battery here. Just hang on a sec while I put a little dent in with my battery denting tool here. And that will give me a little more stability when I try to do this.
Same way a dynamo works. You got a spiral, you got energy, and you got the magnetic field, the gyro.
Well, this works the opposite to a dynamo. This is an electric motor, actually. So, let me get this.
A dynamo and a universal or ordinary electric motor, a universal one, not the.
Well, a dynamo is a generator, though, right?
Yeah,
and a motor is the opposite. The motor is what takes the energy and runs.
Yeah, current doesn't work as a motor.
Yes, right. That's the thing about it. It's a motor, not a dynamo then, though. So what I'm going to do is just put this on the battery, and it'll make contact between the top of the battery, the positive terminal, and the negative, which is attached to the magnet here, and hopefully we'll get some sort of response with it. We'll see how it goes here. It doesn't always work. Let me see. I think I need to clean this up a little bit. I'm not sure if I can do that real quick here. Try it again there. Come on. Come on. Just a second here while I clean this up a bit. It's usually a bit of preparation to do it all properly. Doesn't take much. Just a bit of contact is enough to do it. Okay, hopefully something here. Come on. Okay, let's try it the other way around. Maybe it'll work better. Well, it's extremely slow here today. Let me try my other version here, which is, it could be this battery is not charged up to. I do a proper, okay, that works at least. Same idea. So now we have a little motor. And this is the simplest electric motor in the world, basically. And it works off something called the Lorentz force, which is just, if you were to think of this as a wire that had electricity going through it, then the current between the wire here creates a magnetic field. And that magnetic field interacts with the magnetic field of the magnet and battery arrangement. And it's a very simple arrangement that normally in a motor you need what's called a commutator, which is a special segmented copper strip like that, and you have brushes that run, and it becomes a complicated arrangement. With this, it's very much simplified. It's called a homopolar motor, which is basically sometimes called a unipolar, which means it uses the polarity to actually create the it's one polarity rather than an alternating polarity with a motor that's normal electric motors with a brushed system and so on. So this is kind of special because of its simplicity. It's totally simple. And in the same way, if I was to, you're mentioning a dynamo, if I was to rotate this backwards, then it would be actually possible to, if I was to spin it fast enough, I'd actually be able to light up an LED or create electricity with it. But as it's set up now, it's like a little motor. And now, what does this have to do with plasma and other, the things that we talk about in the Keshe Foundation and whatnot? Well, actually, it has a lot to do because, as far as I'm concerned, and from what I understand, this basic process is the process of rotation in the universe. We have an electrical field and a magnetic field, and they both interact to provide rotation. And it's the simplest fields in the, to me, it's the way the maggrav fields work, the way the plasmas interact, the way things tend to interact in the universe. I believe this is the mechanism that why the Earth rotates around the sun, and why our solar system rotates around the galaxy, and why there's rotation created in virtually everything. I see it as the same basic process with this rotation is automatically caused when you have any kind of a current or a gradient, and magnetic fields. And magnetic fields, as we know, are everywhere in the universe. There's nowhere in any part of the universe where there aren't magnetic fields. So this is a common principle that's useful to know, and it's fun to play with. You can make up your own piece of wire as long as it's something along this shape. I'm not sure why this one is not kicking in the way it should here. It seems like it's not quite long enough. Maybe it needs to be lengthened or something here. I think maybe a different magnet might work. It's not quite sitting on it properly. Usually I don't have so much trouble with it. This one is normally kind of cute in the way it operates. Let's see if I can find another magnet to run it off of. Maybe it'll perform better. Whoops. Shouldn't have got the magnets too close. That's why I keep them up on the ceiling so they don't do that. You guys stay over there. Let's see if this one works. Oh, there we go. Doesn't get much simpler than that sort of basic configuration. Not sure why it slowed down there. Normally it doesn't. It normally keeps going really good. I think this battery's a little weak. It's already starting to overheat. You have to, when you do this experiment, it's best to start with a really, it has to be a fresh battery, and to try to get the best, the most powerful batteries that you can get. I used to get some special rechargeable batteries that were more milliamp hours than your regular batteries. They were at 2850 milliamp hours, which is 2.8 amps actually. And so that's basically it, I guess. It is also, strangely enough, when this starts going around, and especially with the other one, and this one you can see it too, every time the wire hits on the magnet it makes a little spark. And it's quite amazing actually that, for example, I can put my crystal radio detector next to this unit while it's rotating, and the crystal radio will pick up on the sparking action, and you can hear it as a rotational sound going on in the radio. It's very interesting. I've done a number of videos on that. This battery's worn itself out. I've done some videos on that, and I'd love to show one right now, but my audio's not working on my videos, so I can't even show that. Maybe by next week I can. I'll get it working properly. Jay says, is there a way to make something become a magnet but without having an initial magnet to start with? Yeah, you can use, well, if you don't have a magnet to start with, then you can use a piece of copper wire wound up and put a current through it and put your metal inside of it, and the metal will become magnetized like the from the fields of the windings. So you can use an electromagnet, and there's ways of making magnets. You can look up on the internet. There's lots of ways that they make magnets. So any questions about that? You need neodymium magnets to do this. It doesn't take a lot. All you need is like maybe 3. Probably you can even do it with 2 on this setup here. At least if I had a charged there's a charged battery, normally I could. This one's just not performing properly, and that needs to be taller in order to work. It doesn't require a really huge magnet, but you just have to have enough to provide the magnetic force and to have enough clearance off the bottom there for this example. I've killed the battery, so it's not a good example anymore. That one's dead.
Rick, the wire is steel. It looks copper on the screen. The wire has to be steel.
No, it has to be copper. It cannot be steel.
Oh, it has to be. It has to be copper. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. I think this battery's dead too, probably. Pretty much, yeah. Okay, and I have to find a well-charged battery in order to have a successful experiment here.
So as I was saying, some of these pedagogical devices, something like this, or maybe a screen with an electron rotating around an atom is a nice thing. May I continue for a minute?
Yes, please do. Go ahead.
Okay, and I wanted to say to Mark about not understanding, I guess the little suns in the plasma are doing their work. I was also thinking about having a list of jokes that we can tell people as we interact. Like, I know the one little joke was about why can't you believe or trust in atoms because they make up everything. Something like that. So those are cute little things that can introduce somebody into what's going on. But go ahead, Rick.
Well, I was just going to say that people can go to the Keshe Foundation Community Forum, and there's a new section in there for humor. So you can put your little jokes in there, and it might help out others that are trying to explain, explain how things work and so on. You're absolutely right. Joke is a great way to explain things, because it gets by our normal defenses that build up, like, I'm not sure I want to hear about this, weird witch doctor stuff that Mark's talking about, and Mark instead, has a, light attitude and throws a joke in there, some kind of weird Gans joke or something. I don't know, whatever works for that particular person. If you had a repertoire of maybe half a dozen, of your popular, Keshe kind of jokes or something, plasma technology jokes, you could say, or opening lines, to introduce someone, to kind of open them up so they don't shut off to the information and go, oh, I don't want to hear that. Instead, they go, oh, I'm curious. That's pretty cool. Tell me more about that.
Right. Or if you have an interruption in your broadcast and you lose one of the people that's speaking, you can bring up a joke if the host has a list of cute, fun jokes.
Not a bad idea. Yeah.
Yeah. So then the other thing, I know that in Chinese they have a handbook of war, and I'm trying to think of who the author is of how to conduct war, or maybe conduct peace. But we should have one with a handbook for Mr. Keshe, how to conduct peace, with all the little sayings would be very cute.
Yeah,
Too,
nice one, actually.
You know, I was kind of wanting to learn more rather than do more as far as the experimenting in the beginning, because nobody wants to make the mistakes. I want other people to make the mistakes and I'll learn by them. However, this is how, by working through some of these things that Mr. Keshe has done, this is how he's going to create the geniuses. Because while you work through the experiment of someone who made something important, you have that moment in your mind where now you get it, now you know. So I was a little apprehensive somewhat about doing some of these things, but this is how you're going to know rather than just learn. And I'm all for knowing rather than learning tricks or something like that. And I just wanted to mention, as far as John said, the fish he's brought up swimming in the Schauberger thing. I think the term they say is this: the fish doesn't swim; it is swam. The bird doesn't fly; it is flown. So, for whatever that's worth. And as far as the water thing, we can actually manufacture water. I mean, 3/4 of the planet is water. Billions of gallons melting out of Alaska into the oceans. You can capture that, or you can use a distilled, you know, you can distill the ocean with a nuclear reactor. Now we're going to be doing it with the plasma technology, so there'll be plenty of water for everyone if we even need it. And then I just wanted to say, well, the last thing I know, Jim had brought up in another class about the global warming and all this other stuff. I think the history is that we have 100,000-year glaciation, followed by a 12,000-year 20,000-year interglacial period, and that's been the pattern. So where I am right now, in another 8,000, 9,000 years, will be under a mile or two of ice, unless we figure out how to warm something up, and that's why you have all these civilizations out in the 2 miles from the shoreline now, is because when you have the glaciation, it pulls all that water, and the shoreline goes way out, and people build there for 100,000 years or something. So anyway, I just wanted to make a couple little points like that. Thank the Keshe Foundation. Thank Mr. Keshe for unleashing the soul of the man for peace with all beings on this planet and with all beings in the universal community. And thank you kindly.
Very good, Mark. Thank you very much. Yep, it's good. Good comments. All right. Any other good comments?
Thank you, Mark. And Rick, your mic's not open, just in case.
Oh. Thank you. Yep, it is now. Thank you, Mark. I meant to say if I didn't say it properly. Okay. Jay asks, Rick, could the Keshe tech help them find the treasure on Oak Island, like on the TV show? I followed it for 5 years now and see them spending lots of cash and stuff. We might be able to finalize and put it to bed within a week. Well, it may be possible to find treasure with the Keshe technology. I think it's you've already found treasure once you've found the Keshe technology. So why would you need to find more in a way of the physicality stuff? It's like would be using the Keshe technology to try to find gold nuggets or something when you could probably make them make the gold with the technology rather than try to find them as such. But quite possibly, I mean, we're working with fields. It may be that's how metal detectors work. They work with fields to detect the fields of gold or the fields of iron and the fields of black sand and iron pyrites and all that kind of thing. So it's entirely conceivable that magnetic fields from various Keshe devices could be used in the future to find heavy metals, for example, or other such things. Mr. Keshe has also talked about using the fields, to dissolve metals, for example, to dissolve gold, specifically the gold that might be on, say, computer chips or other types of electronics. And it might be possible, in fact, it would be possible to set up fields that would essentially dissolve chips so they didn't function. If you wanted to have a defensive mechanism that involved deactivating hazardous weapons and that kind of thing, then such technology could very well be put into use to stop the use of weapons. Entirely possible. This is essentially what happens when atomic bomb goes off in the atmosphere. You create a plasmatic wave that takes out the electronics, and that's called an EMP pulse. And it's a good chance that all electronics would be wiped out after that, within a very large radius of such a blast. And that would put a damper on all the kids playing their games, for example, and not to mention people wouldn't be able to pump gas for their cars or go to work or do anything that we normally do in our so-called high-tech societies. So, yes, there's a link there about the Iranian-Russian technology and so on, and this is kind of the hidden joke in our modern warfare, is how susceptible all our ships and planes and virtually all the devices of the modern warfare, they can be immobilized relatively easily. So in a way, some of the games they're playing are irrelevant, immaterial, dangerous, stupid, and other such words. We could go on for quite a while, probably. Okay, I'm kind of wanting to wrap things up here soon. We've been going for about 4 hours or so. Anybody else with some burning questions and things they have to ask and need to know basis? Florian says, here in the physical form, the highest density is quite difficult to get into the 0 point, aka present. Well, there's a saying that it's simple but not easy. So yes, it can be difficult, but it can also be all happen in a moment. Is the thing about it. It doesn't have to be difficult. It's just because we're human and we like to make everything difficult. We like to have long explanations and difficult ways to think of things and complicated interactions and whatnot. But it is quite simple, really. It's the simplest thing in the world. It's just that other stuff gets in the way, and we get so busy with our other stuff. Like, how many of us have remembered to be present here during this workshop rather than focusing on the details of certain information or thinking, what we call thinking about things and whatnot, rather than just being present and feeling the fields. That's kind of what it's all about. in my estimation, of course, in my humble opinion.
I want to express great gratitude for what you do, Rick. And I'm laughing at a suggestion that perhaps you do 2 shows a week.
2 a week, yeah, right. It'd be fine if I was just doing the 2 shows a week and that's all I had to focus on, but you know, today is a typical day where I got up early and had meetings and other stuff to do all day, and I was going to try to get a nap. I only had an hour and a half last night, and I was going to try to get a nap today, but things went on and others had to discuss certain things, and Rick didn't get a nap. So you know, it's busy at times, yes, and but I'm trying to go easier on myself too and take more breaks, you know, when I really need them, and keep myself fresh by having power naps and that kind of thing. So it's all good, and it's all kind of part of the way of being of service. And you know, for me, I've worked through most of my life to get myself into a position where I'm free enough to be of service, because it's easy if, you know, if I was married with a family and had heavy mortgage obligations and a bunch of other things, then I would have to be working really hard in other areas in order to keep that all going, keep all the balls going. And many people have many balls going in today's busy life. There's so many things to get involved in and so many things to take care of, especially if you got a lot of friends and people in your life that you're interacting with and that kind of thing. And unfortunately, I don't have very many people locally here that I need to interact with on a need basis. So that gives me the opportunity to focus my attention on more of the international scene and people all around the world, and to you know, just focus in a different way and be more freed up to attend to whatever comes up in the moment, rather than having a heavy schedule that I have to do, you know, such and such and such and such. But doing 2 plasma groups a week, that would be a bit much, I think. Remember that the plasma reactor group originally started out, it was sorry, I didn't have it spotlighted there. The original plasma group many years ago, be back in end of 2012 into 2013, we didn't how do I say it? It was a different situation. Originally, we had very few people, and it was we were listening to workshops on Skype, and weren't actually recording them at that time. And it was kind of a you know, a special group and so on. But it's grown over the years to the point where it is now, and it's changed from the initial workshops that we started with, and they became the plasma reactor group became the first public teaching workshops, of which there were 10 of those. And I remember I was doing these plasma reactor groups. I think it was once a month that we got together then. And then it became like once a week, and that was starting to get pretty intense, like 1 meeting a week. And I wasn't even broadcasting it then. Then it became broadcasting, and the worst part was editing, having to edit the videos before they go out to YouTube and this kind of thing. And that became, you know, a lot of work. It actually took me a solid month to edit the like the first 8 videos that came out that were the first public teaching workshop. They were 8 15-minute videos, like I explained earlier, because YouTube would only allow a 15 minutes of video to be uploaded at a time. So I had 8 sections to make a 2-hour video, and it took all month to edit them. I was very particular about it and wanted to do everything just right and so on, and put things into it, and it took a long time. And when Mr. Keshe announced that we would be doing the public teaching workshops once a month, and then he went from once a month to once a week for these knowledge seekers workshops, it became overwhelming to try to edit and host, once a week. And then, of course, Mr. Keshe, in his lovely way, decided to do the private teaching workshops at the same time. So then we had workshops every single day, and then it became twice a day, and sometimes 3 or 4 times a day. And it became a whole different ball game trying to get out all these videos, and I became a lot less worried about all the tiny little details, and it was just a matter of get these things out, try to produce them complete as is, so we don't have to go back and re-edit them too much and have to add a bunch of stuff and change things and whatnot. Try to get it more or less right the first time, or at least close enough. And it's been an interesting journey trying to keep up with that, and still stay with the what I call the seat of the pants method for producing videos, which is basically impromptu and without much pre-planning, or without a script or any kind of pre-planned, without a plan, basically, and we essentially wing it as we go, as I have in these workshops and the Knowledge Seekers workshops. And Mr. Keshe as well, you don't see Mr. Keshe with his script all ready to speak about different topics and all lined out what to say and so on. In fact, I've never seen him work off of notes or a script or anything, and he goes on for hours talking about all these detailed topics, and it's amazing to experience going through that, and having to wing it basically. And this is part of the miracle of it all, I think, is trying to capture that essence of what's coming out on a raw, soul basis, and try to capture that as it's happening in real time with the interactions that are going on and so on. And most, if it was any kind of TV production or any kind of professional, so-called professional internet broadcasting and so on, there's no way that anyone would do that. It leaves it too much haphazard, and things can go wrong, and how do you keep that continuity and flow and all that kind of thing? Well, I just kind of stopped worrying about that stuff eventually. And we do the best we can. It doesn't always flow properly, as is well evidenced today in the start of today's workshop here. Oh, what a disaster. Probably the worst workshop I've ever done in terms of getting the audio to cooperate. I've had some bad ones, but boy, today was particularly bad. We're still not functioning on all cylinders, as they say, with the audio today. But hopefully that'll get fixed for next time. Anyway, suffice to say, it's been a real journey over the last few years, and continues to be, obviously. And we learn as we go along, and it's been a really, really wonderful, wonderful journey for me personally. And I thank everybody that's involved with all of this, in the participation, or any parts of production, or any parts of anything to do that's touched on this group and its work. It's sometimes we don't always communicate it, and sometimes there's things going on that we don't understand, or don't hear about, or don't know about in the background. And I think it's just really fantastic, and we are among the most fortunate beings in the universe right now at this moment in time, because of the conditions that we find ourselves in and our own internal condition of being able to evolve at this particular juncture in this wonderful universe that we find ourselves in. So, a bunch of yakking there. I think we probably talked enough for today. Any last minute comments before we wrap up here?
You still have your joy. Look at that. Good for you.
Yeah, I sometimes get in a, kind of an ugly mood or whatever. I guess everyone does at times, but we always have to remember we're here for the GANs. We're not here for the physicality in a way. We're here for each other and to be of service, to learn to be of service, to learn to be real spacemen. That's what I said when I was young. I was on a variety show when I was a kid, and my sister was singing or something, and they passed the microphone around to some of the kids and asked them, what do you want to be when you grow up? And people would say the typical things. I want to be a teacher, I want to be a fireman, I want to be a policeman, and this kind of thing. And for me, it was very obvious. I want to be a spaceman. And I remember I was about 5 years old when I said that, and it kind of shocked the interviewer woman, who was this celebrity that was going around to the kids and everything. She didn't know quite what to say about it. It was just before it became cool to say you're a spaceman. So I was a spaceman before it was cool to be a spaceman. And that was the good old days, many, many decades ago. And here I am, still an aspiring spaceman. Well, just goes to show some things never change. I always hope to be a spaceman, even when I'm in space. Alright, well, enough spaced out in this here. I'm going to wrap things up for today. And again, thank you everybody, and do tune into the Knowledge Seekers Workshop coming up on Thursday at the usual 9 a.m. Central European Time. What was I going to say about that? There's something I was going to say about the workshop. We're going to be a little hint that we'll be presenting a new website design coming up on Thursday, and I'm not sure if I was supposed to break the ice about that, but I'll let people know, give them a forewarning. Do tune in for a beautiful new KFSSI educational site that will be very useful to people and be wonderful to do the searching on and that kind of thing. So looking forward to that, and other things will be revealed in the coming workshop by Mr. Keshe, I am sure. Okay, and what else we have coming up? We also have the Exploring Plasma Science series that's coming up. We've already had the Understanding Plasma Science, and that was a 12-part series. And now we have this new series, and it will start, I believe it's on the 5th of February, and
That's right.
I think that's Monday coming up. So that, again, it'll be listed in their usual places for workshop listings, and really looking forward to that. The specialty of this new series is that there will be teachers come in to teach their specialty, and we'll get the the teachings from some of these special teachers that come on. Anything else you want to fill in about that, Elizabeth?
No, I just want to help you wrap it up so that you can get at least a few hours sleep today.
Thank you.
And thank you again, and all the participants. But you are an incredible man, and I appreciate all you do. Thank you.
Well, thank you too for the things that you do, and people might not know that you work so hard in the background in many ways, actually, to help the Keshe Foundation and to move forward. So thanks so much for your efforts, and I know that for you, you've had some pretty big changes over the last few years too, and now we're so much more involved, and you're a dynamo there, Libby, for sure, and keeping people going and keeping the energy and enthusiasm going, and it's so great to see you flourish that way, and just become so involved. I know it's a lot of hard work and all that, but beyond that, there's a lot of joy as well, and that's what we're going for in the ultimate scheme of things. Okay.
There are so many hidden characters, beautiful beings within the foundation. So I celebrate all of us. We are, like Jalal says, we love we.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, it's great to see someone like Mark come on and make his comments and so on. I really appreciate it, Mark. Thank you so much for everything you said today.
I thank you too, Rick, and I wish you happiness and well-being, as well as Libby, and I uplift your souls and everyone who's doing such a great work for the foundation and for humanity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. It's true. I was actually speaking about the other Mark, but I do also appreciate equally all the things that you brought up as well. So thank you to the Marks of the world. You're remarkable. Okay, I think that's enough. I'm getting into silly jokes now, so it's time for me to...
Bye, everyone. There we go.
Mark your words, Rick.
Oops.
All right, we could be here all night with these ones. All right, it's going to end the live stream now, and that'll keep me quiet.